We're gathered here today because unfortunately, the politics of my country has been dictated by the whims of Trump's narcissistic billionaire manservant who doesn't give a shit about the abuse of children unless it's being done by foreigners.
It's predominantly been targeted by migrant men from countries
Hang on a
with
second.
very bad attitudes towards women. Where's your outrage?
Do you think it's conceivable that Elon Musk has not been made aware that Tommy Robinson is a piece of fraud?
Pisco, as I said, I strongly disagree with
I
Elon's
did not
comment.
ask you that. I asked you, do you think it's conceivable?
I already said, I made a mistake. I don't give a fuck about that. Let's talk about the grooming gangs. You're just keep on trying to go,
How are you?
I'm okay. I'm just watching
UK's
my
going
country get
nuts,
destroyed by Trump's manservant. Yeah, nice one.
Here you're referencing Nigel Farage.
Nigel Farage, Tommy Robinson, whatever else. No, yeah, Elon Musk. Basically just Elon Musk had an idea one day. Right. Like, I'm pretty sure this is only discourse because Elon Musk saw stuff on Twitter and got mad. Yeah, as long as there's a new story.
Crazy that our oligarchs are spilling in over to your country and fucking shit up, and also Germany. He's like single-handedly bringing about the end of Western civilization.
I mean, at least he doesn't really have any idea what he's talking about. So this idea of him championing Tommy Robinson for prime minister is actually kind of like weakening the right wing because he's never going to get elected. He's like a criminal, and everyone sees him that way. Like no one likes him.
Yeah, it's like pretty obvious that Tony Robinson is like, is it Tony or Tommy? Tommy. My bad. Yeah, Tommy Robinson is like a huge fraud.
Yeah. And he's not popular. For some reason, like I had to explain to Americans the other day that he's not popular, that he doesn't represent anyone. Yeah.
Even Pierce, who's a complete sycophant to MAGA Republicans and conservatives. He seems to be a bit not willing to do the kind of apologia for him.
Yeah. But
yeah, otherwise good. You still have Starmer in there for quite a bit, though, right? And there's no chance he's going to be upended or they're going to dissolve Parliament because of a king's order, right?
No, he's on. You can't do that. That's not how that works. Yeah, he's only been there for a few months. He's got loads of seats, more than a bigger gap in seats than anyone else has had for probably since the 1800s. So yeah, he's fine. He's secure.
But they're going to completely fuck with this. With his popularity and lie about him, and
yeah, there'll be a lot of slander and things like that. But at least the thing is in the UK that if you've got the majority in Parliament and if it's that big, then they can't really obstruct you in any meaningful way, apart from just with media, like not in the actual political process. So that's why this whole like let's have another inquiry after we've just had one. It isn't really going to be that effective. Yeah. Like they can just shoot it down. Okay, Drew's figuring out how to join in. Okay, cool.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you, guys.
You've been a very naughty boy, Drew. You've been very naughty.
No. I want to say thank you.
Go ahead.
I thank to all the viewers. I'm sure like Pisco's stream, like everyone was just like, Drew, kill him, like because it was so long. I'm sorry, guys. I'm really sorry.
No one.
Wait, how do I change the Discord so that it just shows all four screens equally rather than putting this stupid fucking exhibit on the top? Never mind.
Bro,
it's fine. I got it.
Are you guys like technologically?
It's fine. I got it. Don't worry.
My bad. Sorry, I didn't mean to take that out on you, Drew. It was
just need to. Sometimes I just need to talk through the process. Okay, it just makes it quicker.
Yeah.
Okay, are we starting? Am I introducing this?
Yeah. Oh, are you introducing? Do you even know what this is about, Loaderbox?
Yeah.
Okay, go for it.
Okay, so we're gathered here today because unfortunately, the politics of my country has been dictated by the whims of Trump's narcissistic billionaire manservant who doesn't give a shit about the abuse of children unless it's being done by foreigners. It's a tragic irony that Elon Musk is probably the first real victim of the radicalization rabbit hole of his own platform. And now it seems that countries the world over will have to respond to whatever Elon saw on the shitter when he was stoned that evening. Most recently, he brought up his new special interest, which is British grooming gangs. He doesn't know dick about grooming gangs, or the UK, or the king, or a parliamentary system, or anything else. But thankfully, my guests today do. They argued about it on Twitter. Pisco, Drew,
we literally did not argue about that on Twitter.
Okay.
But it is the
other than that, it was a good intro. Okay, Pisco, what?
Yeah, other than that, it was entertaining. But I'll let Drew introduce himself first, if you'd like to.
Sure. No, thank you as well. Thank you, guys. I apologize again for everybody. So I'd identify as moderate left centrism. I still believe that I am within like the sort of like the tradition of liberalism. I was 13, 14 years old when the Grooming Gang case took place in the UK, when like Rochdale became a huge case. I was only 13, 14 years old. So for some people who might say, oh, well, for some people who might ask, why are you caring about it now, Drew? Well, I was 13, 14 years old when this first broke out. The way I came to this issue, people have said, oh, Drew is starting a right-wing grift. He's going to do what Brianna Wu did, blah, blah, blah. I like Brianna Wu. But people have said, Elon retweeted Drew, therefore Drew is going to go right-wing. He's going to go down the Trump MAGA route, etc., etc. This is not my intention whatsoever. Surprises anybody that Elon retweeted me, because I have been very critical of him in the past. And look, I'm still very critical of his stance on Ukraine. A lot of things he has said and done. I did read the Walter Isaacson biography over Christmas, and his achievements in the technical space in terms of what he's done with SpaceX and Tesla are incredible. I have great respect for that. Politically, I have quite a few differences with Elon. Strong critic of his stance on Ukraine. Very critical of the types of people that he sometimes elevates. So, for example, I'm a massive hater of Tucker Carlson. I literally protested Tucker Carlson's show when he came to Australia. I somehow got into the front row and I had a Ukraine flag. I protested. I disrupted that. That's on my YouTube. I got a $1,000 fine for that, which sucked, but it was worth it. It was very, very much worth it. He also elevated Andrew Tate recently. I'm a massive critic of Andrew Tate, and he is literally a groomer and a rapist himself. So this whole narrative that Drew has become right wing because Elon retweeted him once, and because I'm not. I think that's unfair, and also the fact that I am Australian. I had my stance in the election. I was a big supporter of the Democrats and Kamala, because Australia's alliance with America is so important. I need America to continue remaining a strong ally of America. Otherwise, China may come to rise in my region, and I will be one of the first people to get sniped.
You sound like Pauline Hanson.
I'm glad that you are. I'm glad that you know who Pauline Hanson is. I actually fought with her on television before, actually, which is quite funny. Because I had like a kind of mini political career in Australia. I'm only 25 now, but I had a small independent party that ran the last election, and I literally had a fight with Pauline Hanson on television because she was trying to endorse me, and I wouldn't really take her endorsement, and then she said, "You should take my endorsement. You're being very rude," and it was entertaining. I should put that on YouTube someday. But look. The way I came to this, and look, the China thing. I first came to, public. I first got into public life, I suppose. I was leading pro Hong Kong protests at my university, the University of Queensland in Brisbane, Australia, and I guess there were like Chinese nationalists who came out, tried to beat us up. It became like an international news story because the Chinese government condemned me and condemned me at a press conference. And there was in 2022, the AFP literally raided somebody because they were working for Chinese foreign intelligence and they were trying to put a hit on me in Australia, which is insane. So this is my story. I won't go into that today. We're going to be talking about the grooming gang. The way I came to this, and the reason I brought that all up, I'm going to be very diplomatic now. I've got to almost be a kind of ambassador, because we can't have Trump's isolationism abandoning Australia, because if Australia goes down to the route of appeasing the Chinese Communist Party, I fear for my own safety. So I have to try and find, look, I was a big supporter of the Democrats, but I have to try and find silver linings in the clouds that are ahead. And I'm going to try my best, to avoid being incendiary for the sake of being incendiary. But that doesn't mean that I'm right-wing. That doesn't mean that I'm MAGA. Doesn't mean that I am, a supporter of Tommy Robinson or whatever. Anyway, the reason I came into this, the grooming gang scandal, I've been very, very... The past year, my politics have changed quite a bit, because I wasn't aware of how bad the situation with Islamism was until October 7. And I lost a lot of friends because I had friends who I thought were normal people. And after October 7, they basically sort of became Islamists. They were defending Hamas. They were defending October 7. They were supporting the murder and the rape of innocent people, and that really had a massive impact on me. And since then, I've become very concerned as well, because we've had fire bombings, attacks on synagogues in Australia. There have been attacks on Jewish Australians, hate marches through the streets by basically gangs of people who've been waving Hezbollah flags, Hamas flags. And so this has sort of made me see things through a more, it's hard to explain this, but basically it made me more critical of sort of open border policies, because I believe that, my family came to Australia as migrants ourselves. We fully assimilated. I'm basically fully Australian. Unfortunately, I don't even speak Greek. But and look, it's not to say that people should lose their language and these sorts of things. But I mean, it's been very hard for me to see those massive Hamas hate marches in Australia, firebombing attacks on synagogues. We've had ISIS preachers in Western Sydney who have basically advocating killing Jews. There's that infamous sort of hadith, which is contested. A lot of mainstream Muslim scholars contest it, but there's the hadith where it basically says in the end times there will be a Jew and the Gark entry will call out, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. We've had these types of preachers in Australia. There have been mosques in Western Sydney that have had memorial services for Hezbollah fighters and stuff like that. And so this has made me, I guess, more critical, or not critical, but it's highlighted to me the importance of trying to find a way to make sure that there's assimilation and integration. We don't want sectarian politics. That's, I think, a very important fundamental thing when we have migration. We don't want it to lead to sectarian politics. So this has sort of been my trajectory. So I've become a bit of a critic of, I guess, Islamist extremism and fundamentalism. And look, I was just on Twitter on New Year's Day, and that's when I read, it was a tweet that went super viral. And basically, the tweet was a screenshot of the judge in the Oxford Grooming Gang case, and the judge was basically, it was just the judge's sentencing remarks, and the judge described in graphic detail how a young British girl was anally raped by 4 men at once, which was just one of the sickest things. It's literally, literally stuff that recalls to mind wartime atrocities. It was really horrific. It had a massive impact on me when I read that, and I just thought this needs to be spoken about. So I started talking about it, and then Owen Jones attacked me very viciously. We had a big back and forth. And then Pisco came in and he criticized one of my tweets regarding Medhi Hasan. I think, honestly, what happened was we were maybe speaking past each other. I think there was a misunderstanding. I didn't actually know who Pisco was. That's my fault. I assumed, because look, the majority of people who attack me, I get, unfortunately, dozens of death threats a day. I get dozens of death threats and really hateful, abusive messages a day. And the majority of that comes from sort of pro-Hamas people on the far left. But I also even get neo-Nazis attacking me going, we're going to deport you, you're brown, blah, blah, blah. Like, I literally get all this shit. And I just unfortunately assumed that Pisco was kind of like a far left sort of Hamas supporter or something like that. And then one of my friends actually messaged me and was like, why are you going so hard against Pisco? He's actually friends with Destiny. And I was like, oh, that's stupid of me. I'm sorry. So I was like, look, let's have a debate and a discussion. And I know Lonerbox has also done like a full video on the Grooming Gang scandals. And I actually watched as well his Lonerbox's video analysis of my sort of back and forth with Owen Jones. And I think some of, I want to first preface this by saying I actually have a lot of respect for Lonerbox. I really respect how you have taken on the kind of pro-Hamas guys over the past year. You called out a lot of extremism, propaganda, lies about what is happening in the Middle East right now. So I respect Lonerbox a great deal. And I can see how Pisco and Lonerbox think that maybe I've sort of fallen for far-right misinformation, blah, blah, blah. Look, this is a very difficult topic because from my perspective, for example, the issue with the Chinese Communist Party that I first came into politics with, my stance was always coming from a leftist perspective, in that I still believe in the universal fundamental dignity of all human beings. I believe that all human beings are born equal. I don't believe in racial differences between people. I believe that all human beings are fundamentally equal in value, worth, dignity. And so when I was seeing that, and so I remember at my university, the socialists would not want, they literally told me that they didn't want to be involved in the sort of pro-Hong Kong protest because they thought that if white people were involved in it, it would devolve into kind of xenophobia, and it would devolve into, yellow peril race bashing against Chinese people. That's what the socialists would say to me at the University of Queensland. And so I saw firsthand with that issue how cultural relativism prohibited people on the left from talking about an issue when it came to atrocities against human beings, Tibetans, Uyghurs, etc., etc. And so I've always been a really strong and harsh critic of cultural relativism and how that can blind people on the progressive and leftist side of the spectrum. I'm not saying that you guys are like that. I'm just saying, like, that's, I guess, why I've always had this thing about me where, when I see an issue and I believe it's a issue to do with, human rights, and we all agree here that there were obviously young girls who were victimized in an atrocious way, and there's no justification for that. And what has happened to them is horrible. We all agree on that. I believe, unfortunately, that there's a sort of cultural relativism on the left where people don't want to talk about these issues. It is obviously very touchy, and obviously the far right, they're the ones that often talk about China. They're often also the ones that talk about, the grooming gangs, and obviously they often have an ulterior motive where they want to use these things to, attack migrants, etc. I think that if we cede the ground to these people completely, and so that they're the only ones that are talking about grooming gangs, they're the only ones that are talking about, the Chinese Communist Party, carrying out atrocities, etc., etc. That's a horrible, horrible thing for the left and liberals to do, because I think, unfortunately, that is what is poisoning the voters against the left right now across the Western world. Issues to do with crime, issues to do with migration, issues to do with, national security, Israel, Palestine, all these things. There's always this sort of cultural relativism on the left, and people almost believe like you can't criticize people if they come from a different culture or background. And I think that's completely wrong. I believe that, the way I see what has happened in the UK with these grooming gang scandals, the mass rape that we've seen, I believe it's a cultural problem. I don't believe there's any racial differences that are leading to people raping people. I don't believe in racial differences like that. I believe it's a cultural problem. And because it's a cultural problem, if we push cultural relativism to the side and we properly address these things head on, that is the way to change this culture, rather than, allowing this all to be, race fatalism. You can't talk about this because some people are, I think you know what I mean. So yeah, let's, I've talked for a lot. I see the chat is going, Drew's a yapper, blah, blah, blah. And I also see that people are saying that I've been incoherent. Please give me a second, guys. I'm just warming up. It'll get better as we go on. But yeah, let's go to Lonerbox and Pisco.
Yeah, I think it's really simple. I think you lied on Medhi Hasan, and I don't really appreciate it. That's my position, and my entire claim is that it's in bad faith, and that's what I would like to see and test if that's true. We have a tweet from Kaizen D. I don't even know who this dude is. I'll quote it. The irony of this multiculturalism, mass migration push in Europe is that it will actually produce less diversity, not more. England won't be English. Germany won't be German. Italy won't be Italian.
Let me say something.
Yeah, but I didn't interrupt you one time. No, but sure.
No. I'm actually agreeing with you. I will be the first to say
that you lied.
No, come on. That's a strong claim. Okay. What I'm going to say is I made a mistake. I didn't read that original tweet. I'm sorry. I assumed that Medhi Hasan. I tweeted it pretty fast. I'm sorry. I assumed that Medhi Hasan.
Even worse. That's even worse. You realize that, right? Because what you're saying is,
Pisco, I'm admitting I made a mistake.
Can we just let Pisco give his case, and then we can review after, so we actually know all the facts that we're referring to?
So what you're saying is that when you said Medhi Hasan to Elon Musk, quote, this is your characterization. As an immigrant yourself, how can you criticize Pakistani rape gangs in Rotterdam? Elon built trillions of dollars of companies in America. What a shit argument, Medhi. That when you were characterizing Medhi of having made the argument that immigrants can't criticize rape gangs, you hadn't even looked at what Elon Musk was responding to or the context of that tweet. So you didn't even give a shit enough to look at the tweet before you fired off. I mean, that's crazy, man.
Okay, Pisco, let me say this. Let me explain myself, and I'm going to explain myself. I saw Medhi Hasan make multiple tweets in the same day. There would have been 6 or 7. It was the majority of the thing. It was his main focus for the whole day, criticizing people who were talking about the rape gang. And so I assumed that when he was attacking Elon Musk, that was the context behind his tweet, and that was the context behind him saying, well, Elon, you're an immigrant, so how can you criticize these immigrants? I made a mistake. I apologize for the mistake. I still think that the actual argument that, some people, like for example, I've had people say this to me over the past couple of days. They go, well, Drew, you're talking about the grooming gang rape thing in the UK, and you're saying that, we need to address, bad cultural problems in some of these migrant communities. Well, you're a migrant yourself. Isn't that hypocritical?
I've
had people say. I know you're not saying that. I know. I know you're not saying that. I'm just explaining. I'm explaining how I came to this. I'm just trying to explain to you the context. People have been saying that to me, and so what I was criticizing was that idea that, well, if you're an immigrant, you can't criticize. And look,
so you were reflecting arguments that Medhi. So okay, go ahead.
And I'm telling you, I apologize that I got that one wrong. It's as simple as that. I got that one wrong, and you can try and rake me over the coals.
No, listen. You're nice. You sound like a nice guy, and how we're talking. You sound like that people make mistakes. You're a young guy, but this is why I think it's more than that. Because the way you even characterized it wasn't. I interpreted this statement from Medhi Hasan to be a certain way, and in the sense of
that's what I'm saying though. I misinterpreted. I misinterpreted that specific attack he was making on Elon. I'm admitting that I made a mistake on that one.
No. But what I'm saying was when you're saying, well, he was tweeting all these things against people who were condemning rape gangs. I just heard just now Medhi Hasan on Piers Morgan's show where he called it one of the crimes of the century. He excoriates and it's horrible, horrific. And so I just don't know, where are you getting this? It sounds like to me, this is what it sounds like. And please, I just want to finish this out. And it doesn't mean that you're irredeemable. And it doesn't mean that everyone should hate you and should dogpile you all the time. But it doesn't mean we should have clarity. It sounds like, based on what you said, you viewed him, the person of Medhi, as being oppositional either on this issue or other issues and being against some kind of group. And that him being as part of that group that you identified him with was enough to make him an enemy. And that made it so that, no holds barred. And you just went out without really justifying what you said, which is an atrocious thing to say about someone.
Look, I made a mistake in that specific tweet because I misinterpreted Medhi Hasan's attack against Elon. I had seen all his previous attacks on Elon on that very day. He was criticizing Elon for bringing up rape gangs. Not in that specific tweet. I agree with you, not in that specific tweet, but he was criticizing Elon Musk talking about this.
But hang on a second. But Loner Box just did that at the start of this conversation. Loner Box his entire introduction was, this is being done for bad faith. He's bringing it up selectively. He's trying to influence politics. And he's saying exactly what you're saying Medhi Hasan said that led you to... That's
Loner
crazy.
Box isn't bad faith. No, but this is the thing. I know that Loner Box isn't faith because I've seen his other positions on things, and even where I have a disagreement with Loner Box on some things, I trust that Loner Box is coming to it from good faith. But I've seen Medhi Hasan in action for a long time, and there's so many different things that I agree with him so strongly on. For example, just 2 days ago was the 10-year anniversary of the Charlie Hebdo massacre. 12 people massacred in their offices, and Medhi Hasan put out an article back then, and he said, "I agree that it's horrible that these people were killed, but we need to talk about the responsibility people have not to offend." And that's just one example. I constantly see Medhi Hasan. And for example, he knows just how bad the Russian assault on Ukraine has been. He knows that the Ukrainians currently have no ability whatsoever to assess the civilian casualties that have taken place behind Russian lines of control. So no one knows right now the amount of civilians who were killed in the city of Mariupol. No one knows. That's just a fact. But we have seen the satellite imagery of mass graves being built in that city. And there are some estimates of tens of thousands. And Medhi Hasan, knowing those facts, because he has been a strong critic of Putin and he has been pretty good on Ukraine, knowing those facts, he still, I believe this was on Piers Morgan, it was on another episode, this was a couple months ago, he said more people have died in Israel-Palestine over the past year than have died in the war of Ukraine. He was basically saying that the civilian casualties were worse in Gaza than in Ukraine. And that's a claim that I think was very wrong-headed and actually quite malicious.
True? Wait, hang on. Was he saying a true fact?
No, it's not a true fact because Mehdi Hasan knows that Ukraine currently has no ability to estimate the amount of Ukrainian civilians who've been killed behind Russian lines. No one has that ability right now. So to make a conclusive statement of fact like that, and that's just one example. There are so many different examples where Mehdi Hasan
but I
has
don't
made
understand
arguments.
if you're saying that
very
it's
bad
impossible. So you're saying it's impossible for Ukraine to accurately estimate the number of total civilians killed in the Ukraine war, or just the ones behind Russian lines?
Well, the vast majority of Ukrainian civilians who've died in this war have died in areas that are now under Russian occupation. Like, for example, in Mariupol. Mariupol was probably the largest mass casualty event of the entire Ukraine war. And there are some estimates of tens of thousands of people being killed. That was an estimate given by the mayor of the city. There is satellite imagery showing, acres and acres and acres of mass graves being built on the outskirts of Mariupol. And we also know that the Russians used...
But that could also be for combatants as well, right? I mean, that could be for combatants.
No, not necessarily, because we also know that the Russians were using mobile crematoria chambers, etc., etc. So here is an example where Mehdi Hasan knows that there's no there's no way to currently assess between Gaza and Ukraine when it comes to civilian atrocities, and yet he still went out and he said it's worse in Gaza. Doesn't this make you a hypocrite? This was in the context of one of his debates on Piers Morgan, and I think that's just one example of Mehdi Hasan. Many examples where he's arguing in bad faith. Because he knew that fact. He would know. He's very well versed on Ukraine. I've seen his previous debates on this matter, his interviews on this matter. He knows how bad Russia's atrocities in Ukraine have been, and yet knowing that
we don't. Hang on, I'm just gonna jump in. We don't like Mehdi Hasan's positions on Israel-Palestine, or at least some of us don't. Okay, whatever. But you were suggesting earlier that he was blaming Elon Musk for talking about or having a go at Elon Musk for talking about grooming gangs. My understanding is that these tweets were on January 5th, right? The initial one about South Africa.
And look, the one that Pisco is pointed to, the tweet that I made, I admit that I got that one wrong. But there's other ones where, in the context of this, he's been like Mehdi Hasan. He says this is the crime of the century. Then, if it's the crime of the century, why is it that when I go to his feed, most of his feed right now is criticizing people who are speaking.
Well, let's look at the feed then and see what we can find an example of it, because I'm looking for it now. Okay. I can share screen if you want. Let's see.
Let me stop sharing.
And can I also say as well? Like, here's another example of Mehdi Hasan. Like, this was 9/11. Never forget that it was the destruction of Beirut by Israel in 1982 that Bin Laden would later claim inspired his attack on the Twin Towers in 2001. There is such a thing as blowback, and yes, violence begets violence. Terror produces more terror. That's an example where he's basically saying, it's horrible what happened, but it's a blowback.
Listen. What you're saying. Well, I understand that you might put ultimate responsibility on Al Qaeda, but what you're saying and what Mehdi Hasan's point there is not in the scheme of political opinion. It is a common as dirt opinion that if you go around searching for monsters. Okay, you might strongly disagree with it, but there are people who will say, for example, that America has created its own demons by funding the Mujahideen, by its foreign expansionary wars. It creates. It's not a question of putting guilt. It's tracking the chronology.
But Pisco, like, why is it that we can't just say that 22 Islamist terrorists flying full passenger jets at full speed into towers is bad without saying,
because you want to be told things you already believe, Drew, and I believe that Mehdi Hasan thinks that 9/11 is horrific. And by the way, there's a manner in which that's said where I'll agree with you. There's a manner where it's said where I agree with it, where people make it sound like America's responsible for 9/11. I agree with if that's their point, if that's what they're and sometimes when it's said in a certain way, I'll even agree with you. But without knowing the context in which it was being said, there are a lot of people who will say and look back and say, what can we do to change to make us less vulnerable?
This was the context of when Israel. I think when he made that tweet, it was very shortly. It was very close to the pager attacks. It was in the middle of the escalation of violence between Israel and, like, when Israel was attacking Hezbollah a couple months ago. And he said the bombing of Beirut in 1982 directly led to the 9/11 attacks. And so, like, his kind of perspective, what he was trying to sort of get at there was, well, if the bombing of Beirut in 1982 led to future terror attacks, well, the West is now currently backing the bombing of Beirut in 2024. And it's a lot more complex than that, because we know that Hezbollah launched attacks on Israel on October 8th.
This is his point, right? And you tell me if this good faith interpretation of Mehdi Hasan's point, if you might even agree with it. So you tell me after I'm done with this whether you agree with it.
Yeah.
That foreign interventionism sometimes has unanticipated consequences. And
Yes.
a bomb today that you drop, you might not know down the line what the big ramifications are of that effect. And that when
Sure.
bin Laden signs his little letter to America or whatever he does, he cites that as a prime example. That is not to say that it is justified any of the or talking about any specific person. It's saying, think before you drop a bomb. Maybe this issue needs to be settled because it's been haunting us for the last 50 years.
Okay. Sure, Pisco, but Pisco, but to say that Israel can't attack Hezbollah in 2024 because that will inexorably lead to future 9/11 attacks.
Well, he has said that they shouldn't be bombing otherwise. Well, he does believe that Israel. He does believe that Israel is the aggressor and shouldn't have bombed Lebanon, but that has to do with a lot of different things.
Bomb Lebanon or bomb Hezbollah?
Bomb Hezbollah in Lebanon. Fair?
Well, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's my point. That's my point.
Hezbollah is in Lebanon.
Can we just refocus because that's like a whole different thing.
Sure.
Getting to these Medhi tweets about Elon. I think this is his first one to Elon on January 5th when he's saying, "Imagine if this were your child," and it's obviously like a grooming story or whatever. And Medhi Hasan says, "Why doesn't Musk care about the white child victims of white grooming gangs, such as the ones in Cornwall or Glasgow? Why does he only ask you to imagine the victims of brown grooming gangs?"
Do you agree with that point?
I'm still reading the fucking tweet. Why does he?
Sorry, let him go.
Why does he only ask you to, quote, imagine the victims of brown grooming gangs? How is this faux concern for victims of rape driven by anything other than racism? FYI, pictures of white grooming gangs. What do we think? Do we think Elon only gives a fuck about grooming if it's being done by Muslims?
But okay, can I say something here? Look, I can't stare into Elon Musk's mind to examine whether he cares on one issue and cares on another issue. All I can say, though, is there was a massive, massive atrocity over many decades in many towns in northern England, and it still is basically ongoing. I saw the report in 2024, the Manchester report, and they basically found that there were still 96 men in the community who represented a threat to young girls. 96 men in the community who were basically assessed to be pedophiles who were a major threat to girls. They're still at large in the community. They actually admitted in the 2024 Manchester report, the majority of abusers are still at large and were never taken into account. And so this instinctive knee-jerk thing, in the face of something that is a genuine, horrible scandal that is still ongoing and it still hasn't been rectified because there's still people at large, as these independent reports say. I'm not quoting Tommy Robinson here. I'm quoting the 2024 Manchester
Everything
report,
you're saying is true of the gangs that he's referencing. I mean, he's referencing specific parallels where there are, I believe, I forget which report it was that showed that there are white grooming gangs in England that are not getting any of the attention, that are also at large. And actually, the most prominent prosecutions have all been of Pakistani British citizens. And so what he's saying is this is faux outrage. He's trying to create racial tension.
It's not faux outrage because the people. Can I say something?
That point, but I just want to be clear, Drew. I want to be clear about something. That point is not, I don't give a shit about victims. That point is not, I don't give a shit about the specific grooming gang pattern that you're talking about. It's saying this person, Elon Musk, is using this crisis for his own ends, and that is incredibly different than saying, oh, he doesn't give a fuck about the victims, or he's trying to say whataboutism. What he's trying to do is draw attention to a pernicious actor in Elon Musk, who you kind of, I think you're kind of seeing him as a canny statesman or something.
Look, I've never said that Elon is a canny statesman. I said what he did with SpaceX and Tesla is great, but I don't agree with him on political stuff. But look, here's a tweet by Medhi Hasan, January 13, 2021, 4 years ago now. Also, Quillam, Majid Nawaz and co. helped create the hysteria about brown men and grooming gangs, which was shot down by the Home Office's own report last year. The report, as Osborne tweet reminds us, specifically
Drew, stop right now. This entire thing is a lie. Wait, Drew, I have to stop you.
I'm not praising.
Drew. I know. Wait. Because this is the problem.
Let me say something. Can I say one thing? Please? I'm not praising the Quillam report. I know that there are massive methodological problems with the Quillam report. Okay?
So, do you agree that when you tweeted at Medhi Hasan, there is no way in fucking hell that you were thinking about this 2021 tweet? Fair?
I'd seen this earlier.
You're shitting me, right?
We're trying to. He's saying that. Hang on, Drew. He's saying that because we're saying that your response to Medhi was largely fueled by the fact that you saw what he was tweeting on this day, on January 5th, in response to Elon Musk, and people who were talking about
inventing
the
a rationale.
No. If you go to my Twitter, I posted that tweet Medhi made in 2021. But the time on that is January 3rd, 2025. And you said yourself that my tweet to Medhi happened a few days after that. So I knew about Medhi Hasan's tweets equivocating on this prior to me attacking. And that's a fact. And I'll show you the link right now.
So wait, could we just do one tweet at a time? So do you find an issue with this one, with him saying, why doesn't Musk care about white victims of white grooming gangs, and that it's faux concern driven by anything other than racism? Do we have a problem with this one or no? Okay.
My first problem is that prior to any of these recent tweets that Medhi Hasan has made, back in 2021, he had tweets. And I agree, there might be major methodological problems with that Quillen report. I'm not referring to the Quillen report, but he was talking in 2021, January 2021, he had a post where he talked about the hysteria around brown men and grooming gangs. And I don't believe there is a hysteria because there are still so many men at large. There's still so many men at large. And we have seen in these reports that time and time again, but time and time again, that there was a genuine, massive government failing here. There were police that turned girls back
100%.
who were then raped on the same day. And so for Medhi Hasan in 2021 to be talking about this as hysteria and basically portraying it in 2021 as racism, I think that's still coloring his views today when he's saying, when he's attacking anybody.
Is another case that
his point is consistent.
Is another case that his view is that the hysteria is to do with the way people view it, like it's a specifically Muslim problem.
That's
the hysteria.
Getting at, and you can agree or disagree, but that is what he's not saying is this isn't a problem. I mean, I just gave you his recent, he will condemn rape, and he's never implied that you can't criticize rape. What he said is that there's I agree with you there. Rises with, okay. So then do you agree with his point that this is a specifically politically motivated concentration on a particular? Why?
No, because I believe there is a particular problem with rape gangs perpetrated by Pakistani men in the UK. It is a cultural problem. It does exist. So some people, for example, if Tommy Robinson's using it, he's obviously motivated by bad ends. I'm not endorsing Tommy Robinson. Never have I ever used him as a source. I'm referring to the independent reports. The independent reports show that this problem is ongoing. There are still men in the community at large. Like the vast majority of perpetrators were never tried. There are facts. There was a news report the other day. One of the leaders of the Rochdale grooming gang.
Is there a white problem with rape gangs?
I mean, yes, there's a problem with there's a problem with rape gangs in wider society, and so
is there a white problem with rape gangs?
That there is a specifically British white problem with rape gangs. There is a problem with
rape gangs. There's a British white particular problem with rape gangs. Is that right?
No, I believe that there is a particular problem with all men. It's a problem of misogyny first and foremost. That's what I would say. Look, not all men, but sorry. Even just saying not all men is cringe. What I mean is first and foremost. I would agree with like someone like Julie Bindel, for example, who's like a sort of like second wave feminist or something, who says that first and foremost this is actually a problem of misogyny. So look. I wouldn't say never once have I ever said that this is a particularly Muslim problem. I don't believe that it's Islam as a religion that does this.
You said it's Pakistani problem.
No, and also I'm not even saying that it's a Pakistani problem. It's not Pakistan as a country. It's specific men in the community who have specifically bad cultural attitudes.
Is there a specific white British problem with rape gangs in the UK?
There might be a specifically bad problem with some subsets of the white British population in some towns. I agree with that.
Why don't you cabin and qualify that in the same way you did the Pakistani, or that you didn't do for the Pakistani?
Here's one point that I made in my video about Owen Jones. Owen Jones made the same point. He said, here's a photo of the mugshots of an all-white grooming gang. It was in the town of Walsall, I believe, and they victimized 7 girls, 21 people involved in that gang. Obviously horrific. They deserve life in prison. Evil people, absolutely. At the same time, he was trying to bring that up as a way to say, see, there are some white grooming gang, blah, 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 etc. He uses that as that point. He brings it up whenever anyone brings up what happened in Rochdale. The difference here is Rochdale was on an entirely different scale, like a gigantic issue. We're talking about 1,400 victims. That's the minimum conservative estimate in the report. 1,400. They don't know the full amount. And conservatively in the report as well, there were hundreds of men involved. And hundreds of men, the majority weren't ever convicted of anything. And also, there were problems where this was very widely known in the community. So, for example, we have in one of these reports, I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I can't remember which exact report I read this in, but it was in one of the independent reports, and I will try and find after the stream. I'll try and refer back to the source. But in one of these reports, it noted that some of the Rochdale, I believe this was Rochdale.
It's Rotherham.
It could have been Rotherham. Sorry, Rotherham. Some of the ringleaders were bragging about their crimes to teenagers in the community. They felt such a sense of impunity that they were actually bragging about their crimes. And so there is a specific problem culturally in these towns with some of the men in these Pakistani communities. And let me just say this. This is not something that I've just pulled out of thin air. A young Hamza Yusuf, the Pakistani British leader of the SNP at one point, and I've been a critic of him before, but there was a video of him as a young politician who said that there is a specific problem in some of our communities with men who have seriously misogynistic attitudes, especially towards women of other races and ethnicities. That's what Hamza Yusuf said. Also, you have Nazir, I think his name is Nazir Ashraf. I'll have to go back to it. But basically, he was actually the Pakistani British prosecutor who helped secure 43 convictions, I believe, in the Rotherham case. And so, this is a really good thing. Here is an example of somebody in the Pakistani British community who fully took this issue on head first. And Nazir himself said that there is specifically a problem with cultural attitudes in our communities. And there is specifically a problem where people don't want to talk about this because they believe it will be fodder to the far right. And by doing that, they're actually harming our community first and foremost.
Yeah, but that sounds like a problem. That sounds like a problem with some of the administrators, a problem of governments being like unwilling to call out issues. But it's
also some of the community leaders in these communities, old patriarchal men.
Yeah, no.
These are problems.
Listen. But you said more broadly, like you think that Pakistani British culture is fucked. And I think that
I'm not saying British Pakistani culture is irredeemable. I'm saying that there are problems in British Pakistani culture that we have to be objective and truthful about it. And that's what we have to do to change that culture.
Right. I
have two clarifying questions. Okay. One, you said that one more, other way around. Do we all agree factually that in overall child sexual abuse convictions and charges in the UK, there's like 6,000 plus every year? Do we agree that every ethnic group is about proportionally represented in overall child sexual abuse?
I don't know that to be true.
Can I say here, Loner Box? Here's the problem, Loner Box. Yes, that might be true when it comes to the majority of child sexual abuse statistics. There's a lack of data when it comes to specifically grooming gangs, which is a specific problem. We know that the vast majority of abuse actually occurs sort of within the home with people known to the victims. What happened in Rotherham is quite different because what happened in Rotherham was a systematic trafficking of women. Not women, sorry. The systematic trafficking of girls. The pimping of girls, being sold basically into like sexual slavery. It was systematic rape, systematic trafficking. This was not like sort of like an intercommunal. It was not abuse within the home. It was not abuse within the family, and so that's quite distinct from the normal pattern that you see in child sex abuse cases. Because I believe that's actually a pattern that you see in child sex abuse cases across the entire world. That it is predominantly seen within the home, and it's predominantly the case that people are victimized by people closer to them. But what we see in this case is quite different. We're talking about the systematic trafficking and rape, and basically the pimping of young girls.
I'm just bringing this up because first of all, it is a fact that ethnic groups in the UK are about proportionally represented. Actually, white people are slightly more represented than they are in the general population, according to all charges for child sexual abuse. So. Sure, that's why the problem is. I know you're saying grooming gangs are different. I know they are. Group abuse is different, but it clashes with your early thing that there's a problem with this like culture of men not respecting consent and things like that. Because obviously, why would that be the case if all ethnic groups in the UK are proportionally represented in child sexual abuse as a whole?
Okay, but also Loner Box, as I just referred to just prior, like the Manchester 2024 report, I believe it was, identified 96 men in the community. I'm not sure if it may be the case. I don't know. I don't know if they identified ethnicity when it came to those 96 men, but it identified that there were still 96 men within the community who represented a threat. And we know that predominantly the abuse in that wider region was Pakistani men. And that report found that there were still men in the community who had not been charged. And it said the majority of perpetrators were not charged. And so when we're referring back to all statistics of all convictions in the UK over the previous couple of years, when it comes to, you're saying it's all completely proportionate. One, grooming gangs are separate to the ordinary, not ordinary, but it's separate to the usual pattern of child abuse that we often see. And then secondly, we also know that the majority, or at least a substantial proportion of men who were involved in group-based sexual offending were not ever convicted. And so how can we then say that, well, the statistics show that there's no specific problem?
Because that's true. Because people getting away with sex crimes is going to be true for every kind of sex crime. It's like one of the hardest things to get a conviction or a charge for, right? Like that's the case. It's always 1/10 of rape charges. Yeah, like that's always going to be the case. So that's the case. That's why, and we know that people will get away with it for decades, even if they're white. Like we know this happened with the Catholic Church, right? It was like 45 years before anyone was caught for that. We know the case with Jimmy Savile. He had to die before that came out, and fucking the government knew about him. True. The monarchy knew about him. Right, and he still got away with it. So, and he was white, and the people who assisted him were white. So that was just the first. I'm just going to.
Can we back up here? I want to back up a little bit about what's happening, right? So, what is actually happening here, and what Medhi Hasan's point actually is that there could be a problem with grooming gangs for sure, and there could even be a problem in specific communities, and even from specific nationalities, there could be problems of crime. But what is actually going on is a selective calling out and media campaign orchestrated to benefit certain political demographics and to benefit certain people to be anti-immigration and to anger up British people to be against the foreigner and against the party in power, and to blame Keir Starmer and Labour for all of these events that occurred, where presumably the Conservative power that was in government for a long time after could have done all these issues, resolved a lot of these issues that you're saying on a national scale. They did nothing, and now they're jumping on the train to specifically call out and focus narrowly on this issue in only one dimension for a political and biased purpose. That's what Medhi is doing. Do you disagree with that? Okay,
let me just say as well, and this is further evidence for my position that there is a specific problem with a subset. I
asked you a question. Do you disagree with what Medhi said?
Yes, I disagree that this is all just simply a racial beat up, because that is basically that's what I read into what Medhi Hasan is saying there. He's basically saying to talk about this is the hypocrisy. He says this is the crime of the century, but to talk about this, or the specific people who are currently talking about it are doing it for racial reasons. Okay, let's just say it's not just this isn't just something that emerged from the ether. We know that there is a specific problem, for example, in Egypt with group-based sexual assault violence. For example, the reporter Lara Logan, she was in Tahrir Square in 2011 for the Egyptian Revolution. It was actually filmed live what happened to her. There were 200 to 300 men who.
Wait, why are we talking about the Egyptian? So we're talking about Muslims? Because we're just talking Muslims generally? So you're comparing Arab Muslims in Egypt?
No.
Oh,
no.
Okay. All right.
Not Muslims generally. I'm saying there are bad attitudes towards women in a lot of countries in the Middle East and North Africa. I'm not putting that down to Islam. I'm putting this down.
Pakistan is not in the Middle East, brother. Pakistan is not in the Middle East.
It's obviously part of the greater Middle East.
Because of what?
Because it is an Islamic country, but I'm not saying it's Islam that's motivating this. I've never said
India
that.
part of the greater Middle East? Sorry.
They're so different. I mean, they speak a different language. They come from completely different. What do you mean?
I mean, Pakistan is a fully Islamic state. You can't even be the prime minister of Pakistan if you're not a Muslim. There's literally
I'm not denying they're Muslim. What I'm saying is you are now grouping Egyptian Arab culture with, before you said it was a cultural problem and not a religious problem. You made that nuance, but now you are trying to group together.
And I'm not saying, okay, can I say this? I'm not saying that Islam is the factor here. I'm saying that from across the greater Middle East and North Africa, in a lot of these countries, there are very bad attitudes towards women. That is a fact.
So is Indonesia in the greater Middle East?
No, it's not, obviously.
Then why is Pakistan in the greater Middle East?
It literally borders on Afghanistan, and Afghanistan is often seen as part of the greater Middle East.
So is India part of the great? I mean, what are we talking about here? When people refer to the Middle East, they're talking about the Levant and Northern Africa. That's generally what people are talking about, and maybe extending as far as Iraq. And maybe you're wrong.
Okay,
a little
like,
bit,
look,
but I mean,
okay,
but these are completely different cultures, and you're trying to
completely different
paint
culture.
a pattern and claim
okay.
you're not doing it over Islam.
Okay. But here is also a fact in British Pakistani life. There is a very, very strong, Islamist radical tendency in the British Pakistani community. That is also a fact.
We haven't resolved what just happened. So I know that you want to. I'm the kind of person that's very linear. I'm trying to say that what you just said about Egypt seems to be an opposite, unless what you're saying is that it's a Muslim problem. And if you're saying that you're not doing that, so I want to resolve this before moving on.
Okay. I'm not saying it's a Muslim problem specifically. However, we do see that a lot of young migrant men from Muslim countries, the greater Arab world and the Middle East, including also Pakistan, which is also a very strongly Islamic country. I'm not saying that Islam's the problem. I'm not saying that Islam motivates this. I know that Islam actually has very strong penalties against rape. I'm just saying that there are a lot of young men who unfortunately harbor very regressive and backwards social attitudes towards women. This is a fact. We see this in a lot of countries, and we saw in Egypt. Group-based sexual violence is a very serious problem in Egypt. There are women, multiple women during the 2011 Egyptian revolution. Many Egyptian women themselves were abused sexually by gangs of men in Tahrir Square. It's a real thing, group-based sexual violence. Also, here's another fact. 2015, 2016, New Year's Eve, Cologne attacks against women. There were hundreds and hundreds of women who were attacked, multiple cities across Germany, and these were gangs of young men from Muslim and Muslim countries predominantly, young migrant men from Muslim countries predominantly. Again, I'm not saying that Islam...
Muslim has a rape and sexual assault problem.
No, never have I ever said that in this conversation. I've actually said explicitly, I don't believe that Islam condones rape. I explicitly do not believe that Islam, as a religion...
I'm not saying you said that Islam is
the primary motivating factor.
No, but the connective tissue between all these different incidents is not culture, because these cultures or language are completely different.
Here's the connective issue. There's young migrant men from countries where women have very few rights. Whether that's Egypt, whether that's Pakistan, whether that's the broader Middle East and North Africa, that is a fact. It's young migrant men from societies where women have very few social and political rights. That is just a fact here. That's a fact.
Yeah, so I can acknowledge that immigrant communities have particular problems. I could even say, and I'm not scared of saying, by the way, that particular ethnicities, racial groups, religious groups in different countries have issues and have even higher tendencies of crime. In America, right, it is a fact that proportionally for violent crime and murder, Black people are overrepresented in those statistics. And I am not so lib-pilled or woke-pilled as to not acknowledge those facts. But what I want to do is have an honest conversation. So when someone tells me that, oh, we're bringing up this issue, the grooming gang stuff, because it's really just, this is the particular thing that most matters, and everyone is avoiding this issue. And my alarm bells start to go off when there are other issues that are never talked about. And they have a particular policy outcome. And I know the actors who are behind it have been trying to, for example, in the United States, in Germany, and other places in Europe, promote a narrative, promote an agenda that's in principle anti-immigrant and in favor of...
Okay, but that's not my agenda.
Pushing up
I'm
tensions.
just saying that
No, but so when Medhi Hasan says that what's behind a lot of this talk, which again is centralized almost entirely on this pattern of raping gangs, of grooming gangs, is done for political purposes. Why is that something that you can't say, okay, well, let's hear him out? Maybe he does have a point. Maybe Elon Musk doesn't have the best intentions. Maybe this is being used politically. If they're lying about Tommy Robinson, wait, do you agree Elon Musk is lying about Tommy Robinson? Yes or no?
Elon doesn't have the full facts about Tommy Robinson's previous criminal history.
Wait a second. So you're saying he's so fucking stupid and irresponsible that he is on... Would you characterize... I mean, isn't it completely irresponsible to completely misinform your audience without even doing due diligence when you've been... So many people have brought this to his attention. Piers Morgan...
I strongly disagree with him. I'm telling you, Pisco, I strongly disagree with what Elon says about Tommy Robinson.
When
I think Tommy is a criminal.
You were willing to ascribe so much bad faith to Medhi based on these tweets from 9/11, whatever. But Elon Musk, who is lying in this country on a fucking daily basis, spreading misinformation on a fucking daily basis, we're supposed to give him the benefit of the doubt to say, yeah, he's on the level. He really just cares. And you know what? I agree with Medhi.
Here's the problem, Pisco. Here's the problem. I would actually be talking about this even if Elon wasn't talking about it. I don't give a fuck that Elon talked about this. I literally don't. I just think it's a bad problem that for generations, for 20, 30 years, there's been a serious problem with grooming rape gangs of children in the UK. That's a serious problem. It's predominantly been targeted by migrant men from countries with very bad attitudes towards women. That's a fact. Just think bad. Even if Elon didn't say a single thing, I don't give a fuck. I don't give a fuck at all.
Stop right there. You can say that it's disproportionately Pakistani British people who are doing these gangs, but I don't think you can say majority. I think the reports that you're relying on actually say the majority of grooming gangs are done by white people.
We don't know. There's been more than 50 towns in northern England where this has happened. It's predominantly been young men of an Asian background. We don't
predominantly
know
or disproportionately.
But Pisco, yes, it is disproportionate, but we don't have the full stats because unfortunately the British state hasn't taken this seriously enough in the past to actually collect the full stats.
Wait.
That's a fact.
Wait, whose fault is it that we don't have the data on this?
I believe it's the British state's fault that we don't have the full data on this. Wait
a second. If you don't have the full data, Drew, how can you say there's a particular problem with Pakistani immigrant communities and grooming gangs?
Because 1,400 young girls were raped in the town of Rotherham by hundreds of men, and no one
I asked you a specific question, Drew.
Why.
I said, Drew, you just said we don't have the full data to know which race is more represented. If that's the case, how can you say it's a particular Pakistani problem?
Never have I ever said this is specifically Pakistani. I've never said that once. I said it's a broader problem with young men from countries where women have very few political and social rights.
How would you know that if we don't have the global data? You say we don't have the data to know.
Because they're constantly, these things are constantly happening. Because, for example, there was the Cologne mass sexual assaults. Because there was Rotherham, there was Telford, there was.
You're pointing to incidents.
There are dozens of towns. Incidents. You can't just say it's an incident with 1,400 women,
it's
1,400 girls were systematically raped for decades.
Drew, this is bad. Drew, I'm not saying incident.
You can't say it's an incident.
I'm not saying incident as to make and what you're doing to me now, what I think you're trying to do to me now is similar to what you're doing to Medhi Hasan. When I say incident, I don't mean therefore it's less or better bad. What I'm saying it's a set of cases, but it's not the global sample or the global representative case of all the grooming gangs.
Let's have a full national inquiry then. Okay, here we go then, Pisco. Let's have a full national inquiry so that we can get the proper stats. Let's do that.
Wait,
if I'm wrong, I'll accept
that. What's being asked for is not a national inquiry into the
overall. Just have an inquiry. Just have an investigation.
I need to chime in here. I need to chime in here. An inquiry is not going to tell you the proportion of grooming gangs in the country because police.
Let's do proper studies then.
The problem with these studies is that they ask police stations and they get access to all of them, and the police don't have any data on it because. Here's a question: what's a grooming gang?
Well, exactly. Even the term grooming gang is wrong. It should be child rape gang because these are groups of men who are coordinating for the purpose of systematically raping children.
Wait.
So here's one solution.
What you just said
Why not pass a law?
What you just said there.
To outlaw rape?
They coordinate. You said they coordinate to target children, specifically because they're children, right? So you realize there's one study that actually suggests that there's a study. I can show you a study from 2013 that would say someone who targets there's like two different kinds of group child abusers. One is the groups that target them on the basis of vulnerability, like opportunists, not because they have a specific attraction, but because they have access. And then the other one is people who target them specifically because they are attracted to underage people. You know that like in that latter category, 100% of people from this small study were white. Okay. So it's like.
Oh, okay, but what's the purpose of bringing that up? To say Oh, well, the gangs of men who were raping children weren't predominantly attracted to children. They were just doing it because that was the opportunity. Like, what's the point of bringing up that?
The point of bringing
fact? I mean,
the point of bringing it up is that if we don't have data and we don't have enough police records and access to this data, because when these crimes were committed and even before, none of these institutions seemed to have any coherent or cohesive understanding of what these crimes actually are and how you define them. So an inquiry won't find you anything on that. We've had studies on this, and they all say they all say the data is limited. We don't know, like we don't have representative sampling. But the problem is, you're saying that it's a predominantly, in this one, predominantly, so majority or disproportionately Asian Pakistani problem for these gangs. But then I'm wondering, like, how you know that if we don't know that because of data.
Okay, if we don't do that, let's do two things. Let's have one, a national inquiry, because this did happen in dozens of towns. And it was in dozens of towns. It was predominantly Pakistani men.
How do you know that?
Let's. I mean,
we're not going to let you get away with this. Is it your position? Is it your position or not that in the United Kingdom? Is it your position in the United Kingdom or not that it's predominantly Pakistani, or do we need the data? Which is your position?
Okay. I've never said this is only a Pakistani problem. Never once.
I'm not asking that. I'm asking.
Okay. I believe they are overrepresented. Do two things. One, let's compel police services across the country. Let's have a nationwide strategy. Implement all the recommendations in the Rochdale report. Let's have a nationwide strategy to define this crime.
Drew.
Pisco, I'm telling you, this is actually an answer to your question. Let's have a two-pronged approach. One, implement all the recommendations in the Rochdale report. Let's have a nationwide focused approach with all institutions coming together so that we can, one, define this problem correctly, two, we can collect the data on it. And then secondly, let's also have a nationwide inquiry. If we don't have the full data, let's do those two things. What would stop us from doing those two things?
I'm asking you, what is your position?
At the moment, we can't do those two things.
Is it your position that in the UK, Pakistani citizens or immigrants are overrepresented, or do we not have enough data with respect to grooming gangs?
Overrepresented.
Based on what?
The data is not complete, but based on the data we do have, they are overrepresented.
And the data we do have is how do we know that we're not missing something big if what you're saying is it's so limited? Why would you draw a conclusion like that with a high degree of confidence?
Why would I draw a
conclusion
with a high degree of confidence? Because I'm listening to Nazir Assad, the guy who was the Pakistani British prosecutor of these things, who said this is also a specifically cultural problem in our communities. He said that himself. Why are you disagreeing with the British Pakistani guy who's literally a Pakistani Muslim? And he said this is a cultural problem with our communities. Why are you disagreeing with him? He's the guy who prosecuted people.
It could be a cultural problem, and notwithstanding that fact, it's not a case of overrepresentation. Those are not incompatible.
Okay. If it's not overrepresentation, let's do a fact-finding mission.
It's your position that it is. It's your position that it is. I just want to know what the state of the data is.
Look, we need more data. So let's have nationwide approach to collect more data on this stuff.
I'm not in principle opposed to more fact finding, but I think
they need to do more
problematic.
Data. They need to do more data collection on grooming gangs. That's just a fact. Everyone has to agree with that.
But I'm not blind, and I'm not going to be a sucker, and I'm going to actually look about the motives of people trying to push an agenda.
Okay. Here's an example, Pisco. Here's an example. I believe this was Lonerbox. You probably know this better than me. Off the top of my head, I could get this wrong, but I believe it was Rotherham. Do you know if it was Rotherham, Lonerbox, where it was? It could be Rochdale, but basically one of the ringleaders. I think it was Rochdale. But still, massive pattern of abuse of young girls over a long period of time. And I'm going to double check. Rochdale. He said there were multiple outbursts in court where one of the ringleaders of this gang that raped children made racial outbursts in court. And some of these quotes were very incendiary. Stuff like, "We are the supreme race." Stuff like, white people teach their girls to be great at sex. This is what he said in court. And he also said, we are being persecuted solely because we're Muslim.
Yeah, white people say fucked up shit too. What's your point? White people say really fucked up shit too.
My point, okay, Pisco, here's the point. The guy, literally the ringleader of one of these really brutal rape gangs against young girls, made racially motivated comments in court that indicate that this was a racially motivated crime. So here's an example where we know. Here is a grooming gang that was predominantly made up of Pakistani men, and the ringleader made racially aggravated,
there's a conflation, right?
comments.
there's a conflation.
What's the conflation? He said we're the superior
I'll tell you the
race.
conflation.
He said that. He said we're the superior race.
So now
the white girls.
So I will tell you the conflation, right? One is, are the grooming gangs racially motivated? That's one potential problem. These are racially motivated grooming gangs, and they might be. The second is one race disproportionately, or one ethnicity disproportionately represented in the crime itself? Completely different. One is the racial attitudes of the aggressors, and the other is the racial makeup of the aggressors.
Okay. Here's a good solution to this question, right? One, a nationwide inquiry. Two, collecting more data. Let's do that. Let's just do that. Why would anybody be opposed to that? Let's collect more data. Let's do a full investigation, because we know in at least one case. That the ringleaders were racially motivated, and even one case. To me, even one case of mass grooming, mass rape of young children, and it was done for predominantly racially motivated reasons. Even one case would merit really serious questions about current things of assimilation, current problems regarding assimilation, integration, etc.
Because it's such a big issue, and because you're really concerned, isn't it true to say you're just as concerned with white grooming gangs as Pakistani grooming gangs?
Sure.
Okay.
Do a full study. Do a full study. I'm saying do a nationwide inquiry.
Would you be against any study that focused specifically on Rotherham to the exclusion of other grooming gang issues in the country?
I think the study should be nationwide. I'm actually telling you,
it should be nationwide. Would you be against a study?
No, I'm not, because this nationwide inquiry should also look at white grooming gangs. I've never said it shouldn't. I'm never saying just focus on.
No, but I'm asking you if there was a proposal, and the only proposal was, hey, let's just focus on Pakistani grooming gangs and only the Pakistani.
I've never said that. Okay,
no, I'm not saying that you would.
I don't agree with that.
I'm literally going to put the question to you. Would you be in favor of that or against that?
No, I'm against that. It should look at the entire nation.
Okay, so it sounds like you agree with Medhi Hasan that this should be a problem. Why not?
Because I believe that he's doing this in bad faith because he doesn't want people to bring it up.
Oh, but I believe Elon is doing this in bad faith so that he can extract more political leverage.
But here's the thing. As I said earlier, even if Elon wasn't tweeting about this, I don't care. I'm saying this because I care about it. Because I'm a person who read about these horrible crises.
Medhi is commenting on Elon Musk and the bad faith actors like Tommy Robinson, like Liz Truss, like all these other fucking clowns in that country, and frankly in our country.
Shouldn't have okay, but should there not be a nationwide debate because some bad people are involved in it?
Well, here's the question. You're going to talk about the inquiry. We had one in 2022. What was wrong with that one?
I mean, to my knowledge, the inquiries so far have only been related to specific towns. So there was the J report into Rotherham, there's a report in Manchester, etc. But we haven't had a nationwide inquiry into grooming gangs, and it should be not just Pakistan. It should be nationwide.
The J inquiry from 2022 was an independent inquiry into child sexual abuse. This was a nationwide inquiry. It was based on like hundreds of prosecutions. It was based on multiple inquiries from across the country.
Okay, yeah, true, and look, that's good. But we should have a nationwide inquiry specifically into gang rape. Gang rape is a specific subset of this crime, which is really bad.
Aren't they what they're voting for? What they want is another Rotherham investigation. Isn't that what they're voting for?
That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm saying have a nationwide inquiry into specifically the subset of child rape that occurs within the context of group-based offending. That's what I'm saying. You can't conflate Elon Musk's position, Tommy Robinson's position with my position, okay? That's fair.
So you're talking about group-based offending. So you don't like the Home Office report for 2020?
Well, I've looked at your video, Learner Box, and you said that the Home Office report wasn't complete. They themselves said, we don't have the complete data. We need to do more investigation. So let's have more investigation.
Yeah, but that's why the 2022 inquiry, the first recommendation, the very first one, calls for there to be a single core data set for analyzing different crime types. So we've had that inquiry and we've had the recommendation.
Yeah.
The Tories never implemented it.
I agree. I completely agree with you. The Tories are wrong for doing that. And as I said this like 10 minutes ago, every single recommendation in the J report should be implemented. This is one problem, right?
He's referring to the 2022 report, right?
So why do we need another inquiry? What's the new inquiry going to find that these ones haven't?
I'm responding. I'm saying every single recommendation should be should be implemented in full. I completely agree with that. I've already said that in the stream. Should be implemented in full. Let's do that. Implement it in full. I agree that the Tories are at fault because they were in government for 14 years and this happened all under their watch. I actually view this as a Tory issue. This is the Tory government that did this problem. They presided over this crisis. They're responsible.
And
mostly.
You see all these
most
people blaming Keir Starmer. You see all these people. Isn't this obviously a political fucking hit?
But Pisco. It's also okay. This is my position, right? It is predominantly the Tories' problem because they were the ones who were in government for 14 years. They presided over this hollowing out of the British state over the past 14 years. I've never defended what Tories want. I hated the Tories. I was actually really excited when the Keir Starmer government came in. I thought it was good. Britain needed to change because Britain was basically heading in the direction of a failed state. Here's one problem, right? Even though I'm very strongly critical of the Tories and I really didn't like the Tories and I wanted a change of government, Keir Starmer in the first 6 months has made missteps, big missteps.
I only want to hear them in the context of how it relates to this.
Okay. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was about to go into.
Okay.
One misstep. For example, in the press conference the other day, the first thing he should have said, instead of talking about attacks on the Labor government and how Elon shouldn't be attacking, he should have said the first priority should have been the victims. That should be the victims, right? Here's another one.
What you care about is talking. What you care about is
Pisco. I'm still going. I've got a second point to my point. I've got a second point here. Okay. The other thing is, the Labor government was in power for 6 months. I agree. That's not a large amount of time. So that's why I'm saying, and I'm actually agreeing with Lonerbox, the Tories are the ones who should bear the most blame for this. However, the Labor government was in power for 6 months. And in that 6 months, they have not implemented any of the recommendations on the J report. And they did not have a plan to implement those recommendations until literally 3-4 days ago when this whole issue blew up on Twitter. And that is a problem. That is a problem in itself. Okay. Again, I'm agreeing with Lonerbox that the main issue has been the Tories because they were the ones in government for so long. But the Labour Party was in power for the past 6 months. And there was no plan. For all we know, if this didn't blow up on Twitter, they wouldn't ever have been steps by the Labour government to implement all the recommendations.
Do you want another inquiry, or do you want to see the reforms of the J report implemented? What would be the use of another report? I guess I'm not sure. Are you saying that the time for inquiry is over or not?
Okay. Two separate things here. One, implement all the recommendations from the J report. Have a nationwide set of data. Labor government, they failed because they should have had that. That should be one of their first items of government when they got into power. Unfortunately, they didn't have a plan for that until it blew up on Twitter. For all we know, they wouldn't have done it if it didn't blow up on Twitter. That's one point. That's point one. Point two. Now, let's have a nationwide inquiry and we can investigate whether these crimes were racially motivated. I think that is an important thing. That is an important factor because we know in the case of Rochdale, with the main offender making these heinous racial comments in court, we do need to understand that. We do need to understand whether this was racially motivated or not, whether these are hate crimes, whether this is a wider problem. This is a wider problem because they were not completely isolated individuals. They're working together in gangs. We know that we know that people knew in the community about this stuff because there was a great sense of impunity. They were bragging to some people. So we need to understand as well the cultural problems that might have led to this. We have to understand how can we rebuild social cohesion? How can we work better to assimilate and integrate people who are already living in Britain to make sure that these terrible attitudes towards women are not acceptable? How do we fix that? That's an important issue. That's an important issue. We should look into that.
I'm just going to throw in a fact check, so moderator role here. Okay. You suggested that Labour only acted now because of the Twitter blow up. The one of the recommendations was mandatory.
I didn't say that.
Let him finish, bro. What the fuck?
No, but can I just say? I didn't say they only did it because of the Twitter blow up. I'm just saying there was no coherent plan until very recently,
right?
And that means that we don't know whether.
Okay, so the mandatory reporting recommendation, which is one of the recommendations from the latest inquiry, is basically that it's a crime if you don't report on suspected or witnessed child abuse if you work with kids. That's they want to make it a crime.
Yes.
Labour won the election in the first week of July. That bill was introduced in the end of July last year.
That's good.
So their first 3 weeks in office, and they introduced that bill. And
again, Lonerbox, if you look at any of my commentary on this, I've never said that the Labor Party is particularly the problem. I've never said that they wear the entire issue. I just think that obviously,
it sounds like you're saying that everyone forgot about this, that no one had it on their plate.
It was okay, but it's true, Pisco. It's true that this was not an issue that was okay. Mehdi Hasan, let's take Mehdi Hasan's words. Mehdi Hasan himself said this is the crime of the century. Okay, if it's the crime of the century, this should have been right at the top of the agenda, but it was arguably not on the top of the agenda until very recently.
So now we're changing from if it weren't for Elon, this.
You're just nitpicking. You're just nitpicking here. There's no even.
No, that's what you're doing.
No, not even from Elon. I'm not even saying it's Elon who's done this. I'm not even saying that.
So if it weren't for who?
Never once have I said, all praise to Elon. I've never said that. I've never said that once. I'm just saying that prior to this issue blowing up on Twitter, obviously he had a big role in that. But even before Elon retweeted, the way I read about it was there was somebody who posted the sentencing remarks from Oxford, and that got 45 million views. And that was before Elon was even talking about it. I'm pretty sure that's how he learned about it as well, because this came up on Twitter and became so viral. Now there's a big nationwide discussion about it. Was there a nationwide discussion about it 2 months ago? Not really.
Can I ask
what
you a
have
question?
been some of the fruits of this nationwide discussion? Sorry.
What did you say?
Yeah, I was going to go there.
What if? Yeah. Okay, Pisco, you can ask us.
I think that's a good question, but I was going to phrase it more like in the vein of Elon, which is and more affirmatively. I'm just not going to, instead of asking you, I'm just going to tell you, and then I'll ask you a question. The national debate has been fucking toxic, and it's not about implementing this shit. It's about shitting on certain groups of people and shitting on labor and trying to blame Keir Starmer. And so it doesn't sound like the national conversation, to the extent that it's online, has been bearing any fruit. And to the contrary, and this is where my question comes in, Elon Musk, who is now aware, there's no chance, right, that he's not aware that Tommy Robinson is a incredible fraud, right? And
let's put them to the side. I would care about this.
I don't want to actually don't want to put it to the side. So I'm asking you a question. Do you think it's conceivable?
But I'm not associated.
Well, whether you are or not, I'm asking you the question. Do you think it's conceivable that Elon Musk has not been made aware that Tommy Robinson is a piece of shit, a fraud? You think it's aware that information he's not had access to? You think it's conceivable?
As I said, I strongly disagree with
Elon's did not ask you that. I asked you, do you think it's conceivable? Do you think it's conceivable?
I strongly disagree. It's wrong. I'm telling you what he's saying is wrong. I'm telling you what he's saying.
Isn't it a bad faith fucking lie? Isn't it a lie?
Why do you want me? Dude, I literally said what he said is really wrong, and I strongly disagree with it. But you want me to come out and be like, kill Elon? I'm not going to say kill Elon, okay? I'm not telling you to kill Elon. I strongly disagree with it. What do you want me to say? I said I strongly disagree with it. It's wrong. I said it's really wrong.
It a and you're like, lie?
Why don't you come out and just say it's really wrong? I strongly disagree. But you want me to come out and say
I want you to say what it is.
I don't know what you want me to say.
No, because it's the same thing it's the same pattern. I'm sorry that I'm seeing in our kind of meta debate about Medhi, which is I actually think that there's malice at foot with respect to Elon, and I want you to recognize that. I mean, this guy
I think Mehdi Hasan is motivated by malice. Absolutely motivated by malice.
You're willing to say it about Medhi. So this is the difference, right? You're willing to say it about Medhi. You are unwilling to say it about Elon. Fair?
Yes, I think Mehdi Hasan's worse than Elon, 100%.
No. I'm asking you: are you willing to say you are willing to say that Mehdi Hasan is malicious, but you are not willing to say it about Elon Musk? Is that correct on this issue?
I think on this one issue, Mehdi Hasan is the main person.
And I'm asking you a specific question. Are you willing
not Elon? So
Elon
is things that I disagree with.
So Elon, the biggest fucking liar in the world.
Pisco, I've said that I don't agree with what he said on everything. I said that I don't agree with all of it. I said he's made a lot of mistakes. I disagree with a lot of it.
You give the benefit of the doubt to a robber baron piece of shit, the richest man in the world, a corrupt oligarch who is corrupting my fucking country.
You're giving the benefit of the doubt. You're giving the benefit of the doubt to literally an Islamist supremacist, which is Mehdi Hasan. That's literally Mehdi Hasan.
Holy shit! So your position is Mehdi Hasan is an Islamist.
Yes.
Oh, okay, but even putting aside that, right?
Every single step of the way, he literally was an Islamist 15 years ago. There are literally videos of him literally saying that all gay people are evil, etc. And then he apologized and he reformed himself. But all he ever does is defend and equivocate whenever any problems regarding Islamism anywhere.
What do you think that Elon has said about trans people? Do you have any comment on that?
I don't agree with it. I don't agree with it.
Yeah, but you're ascribing. So this is my problem. Even if you're saying that Medhi Hasan, you're not going to have any good faith because he's an Islamist. And Islamist, by the way, has a particular phrase. And maybe he said some very bad things in the past. By the way, a lot of people have said some very bad things in the past.
He literally said that all gay people are fucking evil. And then he said, and then a couple years later, he then repudiated that and said, "I'm really sorry."
Why need to go through all the disgusting, heinous shit? Do I need to go through all the disgusting, heinous shit that Elon Musk has said over the course of his
miserable
problem. Fucking life?
Pisco, this is the problem. You're trying to make this whole debate about Elon and Medhi. I don't even give a fuck really about them.
No. This conversation is about intention.
Pisco,
this conversation about motivation.
I already said I made a mistake. I don't give a fuck about that. Let's talk about the grooming gangs. And you just keep on trying to go, like, oh no, you're being a bit too mean against Medhi.
This conversation.
That's a separate thing. That's literally such a separate thing. Let's talk about the fucking crisis of child rape.
Drew, this conversation is
about. Dude, you're more outraged by Elon's tweets than the child rape that happened. That's a fact.
How dare you say that? What are you talking about?
Where's your outrage? Literally, you're going out here going, "Oh, Elon, fucking kill him. He's so evil." And then where's your outrage? Where's your passion when it comes to the fucking Rufferham child rape game?
This is the issue, right? And I want to be able to say this, and I want to be able for you to hear it, right? When I asked like what was it about Keir Starmer, the big mistakes related to this, you're like, oh, at the start of I didn't like what he said at the beginning of his press conference. It sounds like, dude, let me finish what the fuck I'm going to say.
I said he should implement all the recommendations. He didn't have a plan to do that.
So what you actually want, right? What you want is for me to repeat back these big emotions, these big long throat clearers like you had at the start of this fucking conversation where it wouldn't fucking end. But these big throat clearers about how
all your passion is about how even
finish. What you care most about is actually the virtue signal. And what I'm telling you is that
virtue signaling about rape. Yeah, you should be outraged about fucking child rape, man. Yes, of course. No, you think it's virtue signaling to be upset about child rape?
We're not here debating about whether or not it's good or bad to rape or whether rape should outrage you. We're here debating about the motivations of the people involved in these discussions.
You're objectively not outraged. All your outrage is targeted at Elon and saying, oh, he's doing this for the bad reason. Where's your passion about the fact that there was 1,400 children who were fucking raped?
So the point of this discussion is about the motivations of the actors involved in the discussion, including yourself. And this whole thing is about your tweet and about the nature of the discourse.
No, it wasn't. I thought this was a discussion about the child grooming game. I didn't know that this was supposed to be a fucking 2-hour. I didn't know that this was supposed to be a 2-hour male struggle session about how Drew was mean to fucking Medhi Hasan. Who fucking cares?
No, this conversation is about Medhi's point and your response to it. And Medhi's point has to do with the way in which this issue is arising and the bad faith of the rich and powerful people who are bringing this forward.
I don't give a fuck what Elon posts about it.
No, but it is what we're not debating.
I read the sentencing report. I don't give a fuck about what Elon said.
We were not debating. Drew, at no point were we debating on Twitter or X the fundamentals of the grooming gang crisis. Or by the way, and if we were really outraged, I don't really see your outrage of the conservatives. I see you trying to virtue signal at this point and make this. I really care about this, just like I really care about Ukraine, and you don't care about shit, and I really care about all this. So this, you're trying to distract now.
Why would I be outraged? Why would I be outraged? No, I'm not distracted. My primary concern is that children were raped. That's why I'm mad.
We're not having. It is fucking disgusting that people are raped. That in the United Kingdom, that white people and Pakistani people and people of other Asian descent are fucking raping kids. It is gross. Criminality should always be fucking charged. That we need to go and take strict measures to make sure these kids are protected. And there was a failure on all levels to protect those kids. But we weren't debating about that. The debate was never about that.
That's what I thought the debate was. That's what the debate was.
Okay, you thought it was conceivable. You thought it was conceivable that I was going to come on here and say, wait a second, because this is also deceitful what you're doing right now. You thought it was conceivable that I was going to come on here and say, it's okay, I guess, don't do that. You thought that's conceivable that we're going to have, and you were going to be like, rape gang is bad, and I'm going to say rape gang is okay. Do you really think the debate was going to be about that?
No, I never thought that.
Then what are we even talking about? So right now, this is all performative. All of this is because you don't want to talk about Elon desperately, and that's what this is about. You don't want to talk about Elon. It makes you uncomfortable. And I got you on something, and you don't want to go back there. And I remember what we're doing, and I'm going to ask it to you again.
This is so fucking retarded. This is so retarded. I literally said, what Elon has posted is bad. I don't agree with him on Tommy Robinson. That's bad. I literally said that.
What I'm getting at. So you said that Medhi was malicious, and I'm asking you, why isn't Elon malicious on this issue?
I don't think it's malicious to talk about child rape gangs.
You don't think it's but he's lying constantly about this issue. Has a pattern of fucking lying in my country. He's a corrupt billionaire oligarch.
Give me a fact about what exact lie did he make about child rape?
He is saying that. Do you agree that Tommy Robinson is not in prison for exposing the truth on these gangs.
Okay, I agree. Tommy Robinson's bad. He's horrible. I condemn Tommy Robinson completely. He tried to collapse the cases
So
on
when
these
Elon
cases.
Musk
So
touts him,
Elon's wrong. But I'm
when
not saying
Elon
that he's,
Musk,
like,
you agree
evil,
Elon
malicious,
Musk touts him, right?
behead someone.
You agree that Elon Musk touts him?
No,
as,
I think it's wrong.
No,
that he
you don't
touts
agree
him.
with
I
that?
think it's wrong. No, I already said this. I don't understand what the problem is. I already said it's bad. It's really bad.
Question. Isn't it true that Elon Musk touts him up, pushes him up, praises him?
Yes, and I'm telling you it's bad. I'm telling you it's bad.
so-
I'm telling you it's very bad.
My question for you is, given that, and given the bad associations you're willing to make with Medhi and say that he's malicious because of comments he's made in the past, why aren't you willing to say now that him associating with Tommy Robinson, saying fake information?
It's bad, but it might be a mistake. It might be a mistake.
It's malicious, and that's Medhi's point. That's Medhi's point, that it's all malicious. It's done with bad intent.
Medhi's the malicious one. Medhi's the malicious one.
Okay, not the corrupt billionaire oligarch who is trying to fuck up the United Kingdom. By the way, and soon your country too. And soon, in my country is already fucked up.
I don't endorse any of Elon's politics. Okay, I just agree that child rape is bad.
You should condemn him. He is a bad figure in this political space. He's supporting the AfD in Germany. What do you think about that?
That's bad. Really bad.
Yeah,
really bad.
But he's not malicious. Yeah. So you're not going to connect the dots to every fucking thing he's doing and say, hey, maybe Medhi has a point that the people promoting this have some bad, corrupt motives. Maybe I should listen and think about what he's saying.
Pisco. I think people need to talk about child rape. Do you agree with me?
Yeah, yes. People need to talk about child rape.
Okay. So it's good that people are talking about child rape now. Yes.
The manner, I also think people should talk about murder, but if all you're doing is saying black people are a scourge, they're fucking murdering people, we should...
Did I say that? No.
We're not talking about the crime because of the crime. What he's trying to criticize Medhi correctly is the bad intent of the people pushing it. People are talking about it. It's a national issue. No, ever since it was whistleblown, this has been a national issue. Why do you think there have been reports, like five reports?
Okay, here's an objective fact. Here's an objective fact that Matt Goodwin posted on his Substack. He did an analysis on, I think it was like Levy or it was one of these like databases where you can search for keywords in major media reports. Like discussion of Black Lives Matter and George Floyd was like 15 times grooming gangs in the UK. And Medhi Hasan has said this is the crime of the century. So why would it be 15 times George Floyd and Black Lives Matter in the UK? It doesn't make sense.
Who's nitpicking now, bro? The George Floyd murder was, and do you agree that he was murdered?
Yes, I agree, and it's really bad. I agree, but I'm just saying, if Medhi Hasan agrees that this is the crime of the century, which is what he said
in history. And
yes.
You're like, why is the biggest protest in history?
Okay, Pisco, why wasn't it the biggest protest in history when there was mass child rape in Rotherham? Why wasn't that the biggest media story of the 20? Why wasn't it the biggest media story in the UK?
There's a lot of factors to that.
It should have been the biggest UK. Okay,
there's a lot of factors. It should have been the biggest
media fact. It should have been the biggest media story in the UK.
Wait, do you want me to answer, or do you want a virtue signal more? Or do you want to hear me answer? So this is the answer. Number one, there's video of the George Floyd thing. There's salacious stories, but videos will always be more provocative. Number two, starts in America. America, much bigger media market, obviously influences the whole world in a way the UK doesn't quite as much with the UK. It happened in real time in the age of digital, whereas the actual rapes occurred over the course, in the 90s through the early in late 2000s, and then the initial reports that whistleblowed on it was like in 2009, 10, not quite in the digital age. There are a lot of reasons why it's a more stale story. I'm not saying that it's not an important story. It is a more stale story than the George Floyd story. So when you say something like, why isn't it the case that we care more about George Floyd? It is disingenuous when you say it. It's fucking stupid.
Okay, it's not,
why
though.
are you bringing that up?
It's not though, because the Guardian had like 2 stories on it that weren't. There were 2 Guardian stories that were not in the context. Like there were other Guardian stories, but like the vast majority of them were to say, oh well, the vast majority are not Pakistani, etc., etc. There's only like 2 in the Guardian that was like strongly critical. Okay, would you agree with me? Would you agree with me here? Pisco? There was a major reckoning when there was massive child sexual abuse in the Catholic Church. Massive reckoning globally, worldwide.
I totally disagree. I totally fucking disagree. That is bullshit. The Catholic Church, the Catholic Church covered that shit up. No.
Yes, they tried to.
It is incredible that you would bring that up. It's actually insane to me that you would bring that up. So the Catholic Church had a massive cover up.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree that the Catholic Church will cover it up. I'm actually agreeing with you. What I'm saying is there was much more discussion of something like that compared to this.
In the UK, absolutely not. No.
I do not agree.
I mean,
with that.
Rotherham broke in 2014.
They
the Catholic Church was a year later.
Vatican and gave them cover. And where's the big outrage over that? I mean, it's the
look. Maybe
I'm you can't touch.
Maybe I'm coming at this from the perspective of an Australian, because we had a massive nationwide inquiry into institutional sexual abuse. Every single institution in the country, Catholic Church, every single Christian church, they looked at Jewish churches, they looked at Scouts, they looked at everything. Why can't the UK do something like that? We had a massive national discussion in Australia, and Catholic sexual abuse within the Catholic Church was one of the biggest.
We had it in the UK. It was 1 year after Rotherham. Why do you think it didn't get as much press attention?
But
because it's about the immigrants, Drew. Come on, use your fucking head. They're trying to get people angry.
But maybe it is a bad thing if immigrants are raping people. Isn't that a bad thing?
Maybe it's a bad thing if citizens are raping people and non-immigrants are raping people.
I agree, but it's worse. I think it's worse if an immigrant does it, though, because an immigrant wouldn't be in the country in the first place to rape somebody if we didn't let them in. So isn't it worse?
So isn't it? I actually don't know. Is it worse for the victim? You're saying, the person who raped also.
I know, but it's something you can control over, right? Because there's always going to be, unfortunately, rape in your society. But if you've got, and I'm saying this as somebody who comes from a migrant family, if there's a migrant who then commits a terrible rape, that's worse, because that's a choice that you've let that person into the country.
I mean,
that's why people are angry.
I understand it has to do with this notion of he's not one of ours, but I actually think it's
that's not even what.
Yeah, no. I actually think it's really distorted. So, for example, I'll give you an example. In this country, we're about to bipartisanly pass a bill called the Laken Riley bill, because there was such a stir over a brutal killing. It was a completely brutal killing by an illegal immigrant of a human being, this college student. But they made so much of that because of a reason. And the bill is called that for a reason, political reasons. But they don't make the same kind of ruckus when fucking kids are gunned down in our fucking schools every fucking 2 months, it seems like.
Okay, I agree with you. Look, I actually agree with you fully when it comes to gun stuff in America. Fully agree with you. I'm just saying, obviously it's a specific political problem when you've got an illegal immigrant who rapes somebody. That's a specific political problem. And you can actually fix that. You actually can stop that. So why would that not be like a...
You're accepting their framing. And when you accept their framing, they get power. What you don't understand is they're doing it to control the masses because they're corrupt as shit, and they were successful. And the United States, they were fucking successful. And now we have a fascist in charge of the United States named Donald Trump. You might not want to say it because you want to play nice because you're Australia and you're in favor of AUKUS. I'm in favor of AUKUS, and you want to maintain relations. Yeah, very cool. I understand we have a lot of on the surface political. No, but what I'm telling you is you need to question the motivations of these actors and not just accept their framing. That's why we need people like Medhi Hasan. You might disagree on Israel or whatever the fuck. I don't give a shit. It's an important voice to hear.
Okay, but this is also my point, right, Pisco? I'm somebody who doesn't want to see social democratic center-left parties evaporate and be destroyed all across the world. Okay, they're losing very badly in Europe. They're losing badly in America. The 2024 election was a disaster, such a disaster. I was like in a shell shock for days. I was fucking so sad. Okay, there's a problem where and I identify with the center left, etc. I want the left to win. This is a big problem where the center left, unfortunately, is really out of step with the vast majority of ordinary citizens when it comes to stuff like illegal immigrants and crime. It's a big problem, we're killing ourselves. We're killing ourselves by not.
If you want to see the center left succeed, you need to stop thinking that acquiescing to the right and accepting their frame is going to bring that result, because they don't give a fuck, Drew. They do not give a fuck about bad results. They don't.
Pisco. Why is there a Danish Labour Party in power in Denmark right now? Because they just actually deported a lot of Islamist extremists. Okay, like Denmark's an example where they actually said, okay, we're not going to have open borders anymore. We're going to deport illegal immigrants. We're going to deport Islamist extremists, etc. And the Labour Party did that, and they're still in power. And they have avoided this whole wave across Europe where the centre left has been destroyed.
But so our Labour Party just won with the biggest margin since 1832. And they haven't acquiesced to the right on this.
I know, Lennox. Okay, but Lennox, like, it was a great victory. But look at the primary votes. The primary votes are not in a positive direction. They're obviously trending in a bad direction.
Do you think Australia has open borders? I have to ask. Do you think Australia has open borders?
We have a policy right now that is almost open borders.
Okay, so you fucking lost your mind. I mean, like, how can you think that? I mean, how
can I think that, dude? I'm in a country. Dude, I'm in a country. Okay, here's an amazing stat, right? Australia has, literally in absolute terms, like almost the exact same amount of international. There are like 1 million international students in the United States, in a country of 340 million. We've got that in Australia. There's a massive nationwide housing crisis. Massive nationwide housing crisis. It's literally impossible for young people to basically ever get a home.
And you're blaming everything on immigrants, and it's classic.
No, I'm not blaming everything.
This is a story.
I'm not blaming everything on immigrants.
It's successful,
dude. This is the thing, right? I have like a NIMBY perspective. I'm like, okay, there's a two-pronged issue to this, right? You need to address both demand and you need to address both supply. One, I agree with the NIMBYs. Yes, let's unlock supply. Let's build more housing. Absolutely, I completely agree with that. But the second time, you also have to look at demand as well. And Australia has actually had the largest, just in the past year. The past year has been the largest rate of migration in the entire 60,000 year history of human habitation of the Australian continent. More people have arrived in 1 year. The entire 60,000 year history of the Australian continent, more people have arrived in 1 year over the past year, in the entire history of humanity, okay? Like, we actually don't have enough housing in Australia. There's a massive nationwide housing crisis. I don't want zero immigration. I still want immigration. I'm just saying,
but you understand Australia has very strict policies, right? Australia's known for having strict immigration policies.
Okay, that's what the international perspective is. But if you actually look, this is the funny thing, right? In Australia, we had this problem where basically the Conservatives would do a bait and switch, right? So the Conservatives in Australia were known to be like really tough on illegal immigration, which is the boat thing. But this is the funny thing, and a lot of people have pointed this out over the years. The illegal immigration via boat arrivals in Australia were always a very, very tiny, minuscule percentage of overall illegal arrivals in Australia. The vast majority of illegal immigrants who came to Australia came via, came via air, came via plane, and then overstay visa, et cetera, et cetera. So the Conservatives basically did a bait and switch policy from about the 2000s onwards. It started in like 1999 or whatever. The Conservatives did a bait and switch policy where they basically said to the Australian population, we're going to go really, really insanely hard against the boat smuggling arrivals, the boat illegal arrivals. And so that's why Australia has this like perspective on the world stage of, oh my God, Australia has the toughest policies ever, because we have been actually like really, really strong on that. And to be fair, like the way they treated a lot of the refugees that arrived was really brutal and horrible and wrong. Like, because there were people who were stuck in offshore detention for like 10 years without ever being processed, etc. So there's this perspective on the world stage that Australia is this really, really strict thing. But it was actually it was always this kind of like conservative bait and switch, because while they were sort of satisfying, I guess, like a demand on the part of the Australian electorate, there's a demand on the Australian economy. Okay, but before we go into that, there was always a demand. Like it's like in Britain, right? Like if you look at the polling in Britain for a long time, there have been people who say, like a majority has basically said we want to lower immigration. And then you know what the Tory government did recently? They like, this is what Keir Starmer said recently. I actually fully agree with it. He was like they were talking basically about how we're going to be so tough on the boats. But then meanwhile, Boris Johnson did the same thing in the UK. In 1 year, he basically it presided over the largest immigration wave in the entire human habitation of the British Isles in all of human history. The more people arrived in 1 year under Boris than like literally in the entire history of Britain. And like this was a bait and switch that the Tories were doing, because they were going, oh, we're going to stop all the boats in Calais and everything. Meanwhile, they literally almost did have kind of open border policies. And Keir Starmer came out in the parliament and said, this is really wrong. This is a disaster. And this is a little bit of a similar situation in Australia, because there was this sort of conservative bait and switch where they're like, we're going to crack down really hard on the boats. The boats were like 5% of illegal arrivals. The vast majority of people who came illegally were coming by the air. And then over the past year, there's been more than 600,000 net arrivals in Australia. In a country of 24 million, 4.5% of the population of Australia, 1 in 22 people, I believe, have arrived in Australia.
Now you understand why I said you sound like fucking Pauline Hanson. It's
how?
To me,
what's Pauline Hanson? What's Pauline Hanson to just say I'm a social democrat and I think we should slightly lower immigration to where it was prior to COVID? Prior to COVID, it was like 150,000 a year or 200,000 a year, which was still very generous on the world stage, considering we're a small country of 24, 25 million people. Now it's at 600,000. I'm saying let's just go back to the pre-COVID levels. How's that Pauline Hanson? I've never talked about race. I've never talked about anything. I'm just saying let's go back to the pre-COVID levels. That's normal. I just want to be able to afford a house.
Can I ask just out of sheer curiosity? Are you going to support Albanese in the next election?
I don't know. I'm not sure. He's done a very bad job, unfortunately. I agree with the AUKUS stuff, but he's also, even just on China, he's done a really bad job. I'm not sure how I'm going to vote.
Might you vote?
But look, okay, like
Peter
Pisco,
Dutton?
right? No, I'm not going to vote for Peter Dutton. I actually don't know who I'm going to vote. Anyway, Pisco, listen to this, right? You live in a country of 340 million, right? The equivalent of 5% of people arriving in 3 years is 5% of 340 million. That's like 15, 20 million people arriving in 3 years, right? It's a huge number, huge number. Here's the other thing, right? US has a lot more capacity to absorb that amount of people because
I
you've
only
got
just
literally
realized
like
how
hundreds of
stoned
cities.
Pisco looks. I don't know why it took me so long.
Your population is quite spread out, right? In Australia, we've got 5 major cities, and basically 90% of migrants like literally live in those 5 major cities. Dude, like, you know, the population of Australia is so urbanized. 90%, like 90% of the Australian population is basically like 5 cities, right? And so, like, you guys have an immigration wave. You can space it out. You've got literally dozens and dozens of cities and even small towns, right? Like, I remember, but I remember going. But here's a big difference between Australia and America, right? I remember going on Wikipedia and I was like looking at small towns in America, and there's literally like hundreds of towns that have a population over like 100,000 people, right? In Australia, we've basically got like 5 big cities of like 2 million, 3 million people. The vast majority of arrivals are now just going only to Sydney and Melbourne, which is like they've gone, and it's a huge thing. 5%
I
of the
see what you're
population
doing,
comes through.
Lonerbox. Like I have all of the streams on everything. So stop what you're doing right now.
What's he doing?
I am tired. But listen, I think we're far afield, Drew. Listen, this is my.
Sorry.
Yeah. What I want to tell you, seriously, is
okay.
I think that you need to fucking distance yourself from Elon Musk. He's a really, really bad guy. I think you need to be able to say,
how am I close to him? How am I?
No, I'm not saying you're close. I think you need to distance yourself.
I'm not exactly working with
because you're glazing a little bit. You're fucking a little high that he retweeted your shit, and he's a bad dude. He's a bad hombre, and you shouldn't listen to him. He is bad faith.
Pisco, if you look at my Twitter history, I've probably got like 500 tweets criticizing Elon, and then he like has like 2 tweets retweeting me. Seriously, like if you look at the actual balance, it's just that, you know, I'm Australian, so if I come out and say, oh my god, like literally behead Elon and Trump. Like what? I can't ever go to America again. Australia gets fucked over. Like we need America.
But doesn't mean. But listen. When Medhi Hasan says something, this is my ultimate point. When Medhi Hasan is like, "Hey, dude, this motherfucking guy is like," give him the benefit of the doubt to read his tweet. I know you said that you were going to do that, but
okay.
Maybe
I agree. I told you I was wrong
think
that one
Elon. Maybe think that Elon is malicious, and I will tell you, this might sound radical, more malicious than Zateo News guys, because he is. And Medhi Hasan, you may disagree with him on Israel Palestine, you know, whatever. I even disagree with some of his policies. I think he was a little bit too harsh on Biden at times, but he is one of the best fighters for liberal principles in America now. Don't tell me about what happened 20 years ago, whatever. Now he is one of the most effective left-wing spokesperson against MAGA.
Bad for the left.
MAGA is really a death cult. It will be the death of Western civilization as we know it, and we need to have all of our fighters fighting against MAGA and Elon Musk and the corrupt billionaire class that is going to fucking bankrupt our country.
I share with you a determination that Western civilization will succeed. I think if Medhi Hasan, who is an Islamist supremacist, becomes a key and chief spokesperson of liberalism in America, that's really bad for us liberals.
Well, I have to say, if that's your position, why the fuck don't you think that of Elon Musk? Elon Musk, who, by the way,
again, I don't like Elon's political.
No. He's malicious and he's a liar, and he is going after.
You just want me to come out and say kill Elon? Like that's what you want me to say?
I want you to say he's a piece of shit.
I'm not going to say that because I already said I politically disagree with him a strong amount. But I want him to
watch. Call Medhi Hasan a piece of shit. Call him piece of shit.
Pisco. I will explain to you my position. Right? I want Elon to improve his position on Ukraine. I am a big supporter of Ukraine. The fact that he retweeted me, I don't want to then come out and say kill Elon because I want Elon to improve his position on Ukraine. Okay, so
you're doing the Cenk Uyghur thing. No, he's your enemy. No. He is your enemy, and Trump is your enemy. And if you can't see that, then you're fucked. You're fucked, dude, bro. The AFD is our enemy. They're Nazis.
You're an American citizen. You can say that Trump's your enemy. I can't say that as a Australian because I need AUKUS to exist. Otherwise, the Chinese government, if they fucking take Taiwan, I'm going to be fucking killed, okay? So I can't go out and say...
No. Australians have always been good to Americans. Australians have always followed Americans into war. Australia is one of America's, if not America's best friend. And Donald Trump, the minute it's inconvenient, will drop you like a bag of sacks. He's going to fuck you over, or he'll drag you to his wars. You better bet on it. Trump will drop you like a bag of fucking sand. That's like it is. There is no loyalty between Trump and Australia. He'll fuck you over.
If Trump does that, I'll be absolutely against it. I'm very much against. My biggest criticism of Trump is actually the way he treats his liberal allies. He treats his liberal allies worse than he treats the
dogs. And that's why fucking dogs. Yeah, Look at how he's treating Denmark. Speaking of Denmark, he's a piece of shit.
Why I don't like
him
Trump
because he's going to spread.
That's why I don't like Trump. I don't like
hang on
Trump.
a second.
Okay.
Australia is. I have someone who said this to me, and I think it's true. Is always 6 months behind America. It's coming for you next. And this shit, and Elon Musk and people who are loyal to him are going to implement it in your country. And then when you have a Trump-like figure in Australia fucking your shit up, changing all your Western values, maybe then you'll realize he's a piece of shit, he's malicious, and he's the biggest threat, not Medhi Hasan.
Dude, Pisco, I was strongly against Trump at the election. He won. There's nothing I can do about that as an Australian citizen. Me going on Twitter and saying kill Trump is not going to do anything.
I did not say I don't want Trump to be assassinated.
I know. But I'm just saying, like I can hope for as an Australian citizen right now. All I can hope for is that, like, please God, it's a really bad time for us liberals, right, across the entire world. Really bad time, and I just have to hope against hope because I'm an Australian citizen. I can't change anything. I just have to hope against hope that Trump will somehow be better for liberal allies than he previously has been. I just have to hope against hope that Elon's going to somehow be better on Ukraine than he previously has to. I have to hope, okay? I don't have the luxury you have as an American citizen with free speech to say, we will destroy. I can't say this stuff because I have to be more.
You can say it about Medhi because he's powerless and he can't hurt you, and so that's why you go after him and you say that he says all these awful things.
No. I mean, I disagree with Medhi. I disagree with Medhi because he's an Islamist supremacist. But never have I actually ever said like destroy Medhi already. I just disagree with him on Twitter.
Listen, this has been interesting conversation, Drew. What can I say? I think that you see targets and you want to go after them. Sometimes I can be a bit like that too, but I just want you to take a second, read the tweet next time, motherfucker.
Pisco, I already said to you, I got that one wrong. Okay. I already said that, and you can just use that forever to be like, oh my God, kill Drew.
Listen, I'll drop it.
I know. Like the thing is, if I actually straight away say, like literally within the first 5 minutes of this whole interview, literally within the first 5 minutes, I said, Pisco, you actually had a point there. I'm sorry, I got it wrong. But then you tried to make the whole thing about how
I was going one level further. I was saying what you were doing was malicious and knowingly bad, and it wasn't just a mistake. But
I did make a mistake. Because I as I said at the start of the whole stream, January 3, I retweeted Medhi's tweet from 2021 when he was saying that this was all history about brown men. And I was looking at his tweet for many days.
So I believe you now that you were thinking about that tweet, but that doesn't mean that. Okay, but put that aside. Don't glaze Elon, and I'm watching you, motherfucker. I am watching you like a fucking.
I'm not even glazing Elon. I'm not even glazing him, dude. He retweeted me 2 times. Like, how am I glazing him?
You love him.
No, dude. This is what Pisco wants me to do. I'll just tell you what Pisco wants. Pisco wants me to go. Like when Elon retweets me next, Pisco wants me to go. Like reply in the thing, go, Elon, never retweet me again. I hate you, order. Like, how does that help the issues that I care about? Because one of the major things, for example, that I really, really care about is Ukraine. Like somehow, because Elon saw my tweet, he's retweeted me, and I've got a Ukraine flag in my bio. That's possibly a good thing. It's better than me. That's is there a potential? Thing. It's a good thing because he's previously hated the Ukrainian cause so much, and like. I saw that he had a big attack with the Groypers over the past 2 weeks. He had a massive attack with them over H1B visas and stuff like that. A massive big falling out with them. If he can move in a better direction, if he can see that there are some Ukraine people who are like, he wants to typecast all pro-Ukraine people as like, libtards, etc. That I'm someone who's liberal who also doesn't like child rape gangs, etc. That's good. Okay. I'm not going to do the next time if he ever retweets me again. I don't even know if he ever will, but I'm not going to just go in the reply and be like, "Fuck you, Elon, never retweet me again." Because what does that achieve? Will
you ever will you ever call him out for being malicious? Since you say,
I've criticized him. I've criticized him a million times. But I said it, I probably said 30 times in this entire stream that I strongly disagree with his politics. I strongly disagree with what he said about Tommy Robinson. I strongly disagree with a lot of things he said about it.
Based on what you said about
this is the thing. You want me to go out and say he's an absolutely evil person? What does that achieve?
Okay, so then this will be my last question. Then we can wrap up. Okay. If he did act malicious, if he was in your minds doing something evil or malicious for a bad motive. It's the case that you wouldn't call him out specifically for being malicious, right? You would hold that back because you want to have if he does something evil, then I'll criticize it, okay? And I do criticize him all the time. And if you look at my tweets, I've had like probably 300, 400 tweets criticizing. What happened to this whole building bridges and I can't criticize them because then I won't be let into the country and I won't have an effect. It sounds like if he does something malicious, if you think it's malicious, you're not going to say it.
No. Dude, if I thought that I had to be completely censored on this stuff, I wouldn't have said in this podcast that I strongly disagree with him on politics and I strongly disagree with what he said on Tory Robinson. It's bad. I've said that many times. I'm still going to criticize him. Okay, I'm just not going to. I'm just not going to go onto this person and be like, Elon, I hate you. Die. Like I'm not going to do that because what's the point?
Even
of that?
if he does something really, really, really bad.
Oh, if he goes out into the street and beheads a child, of course I'll do that. Okay, but like at this point in time, got to be strategic.
But you won't call him out for lying. Is it fair that you'll never call him out for lying?
But here's the thing. Yes, it is.
You won't call him out for lying, fair? Because that's
no. What I said, Pisco, is what I was about to say is even though he said really bad things, like for example, like championing Tory Robinson, that's really bad. I completely agree. That's horrible. I don't think he's fully motivated by like evil in his heart when it comes to child rape things. Because I think a lot of normal people.
I'm talking about lying. Will you call him out for lying?
If he knowingly lies, of course.
If he's not knowingly lying, his contribution to the grooming thing is just ridiculous. Then it's just stupid. It's inept.
No, I wouldn't say it's fully evil and bad because look, at least people are talking about it because it does need more people to talk.
But is he lying?
He's poisoning the discourse though, right? He hasn't contributed anything useful to it. We had legislation that was on the way, all the merrier without him, and now they're talking. Now they're like sea lining about another inquiry, as if so the Tories can cover themselves after not implementing 20 recommendations, any of them, and from the last inquiry.
But Lonabox, there was also up until this weekend when it became a huge issue because of Twitter. There was no systematic plan by the Labor government to implement all 20 recommendations, right? Yes, you pointed to one good thing that they were going to do, which was in the first 3 weeks, they wanted to move legislation that would criminalize people who are not reporting this stuff.
Yeah, so they started implementing the recommendations before Elon Musk said anything.
Okay,
they were 3 weeks into office. They haven't changed their policy. Okay. They're not like being like, okay, yeah, we'll do the other ones. They haven't done that. They're just going with business as usual.
Okay.
The only thing now is that they also had to vote on a retarded fucking inquiry that wasn't going to achieve anything because we already had an inquiry.
Lonabox, business as usual is not right on this. There's still 20 recommendations that need to be implemented, right?
Yeah, and Elon Musk slowed down that process by introducing this whole new vote now that the Tories threw in of trying to get a new inquiry. Inquiries are expensive. They take like years to do. Why would you do a new inquiry and waste all those resources when you have 20 recommendations to implement? Like when you already had one 2 years ago.
Drew. There's nothing. The writer of those reports, the writer of the report, those 20 reforms, says we don't need a new inquiry. How does that change your perspective?
Okay, but
it doesn't change your perspective.
Okay, no, I'm answering you. Implement the 20 recommendations and also do an inquiry to investigate whether cultural attitudes led to this crisis.
What are we expecting to find?
You're willing to take the recommendations of the 20, but not of her recommendation not to do another inquiry. That's interesting.
I still think. Well, previous inquiries didn't necessarily look into this as potential hate crimes. I think that's an important thing that should be considered.
The criminal justice system assesses whether they're potential hate crimes, and apparently they didn't find it. Well, why not?
That's an error because that's an error on the part of the British justice system.
Why do you think they didn't?
It's an error on the part of the British justice system.
that's not why they didn't decide they were hate crimes.
I think they were hate crimes, and I think it's an error of the British justice system that they weren't charged as hate crimes. A lot of them, like for example, we literally had one of the ringleaders saying in court that we're the supreme race. Why is that not considered part of
Pisco? Pisco, if a black guy's insulting me, and I get mad because he's insulting me, and I beat him up, and then in court I'm like, this guy's a fucking N-word. Like, is that a hate crime? The thing I'm charged for, is that a hate crime?
I don't know. I really don't know.
But shouldn't we? Well, here we go.
Versus, okay, that's one scenario. Okay, that's one scenario. That's one scenario. Second scenario, I go and
I don't know about the hate crime lies. I'm really sorry.
Okay,
I don't know about that.
I'm just asking you. Hate crime is like a motive, right? Hate is the motive to the crime.
Yeah, it's the motive behind the
so
crime.
I'm just asking you to use your instincts here as a good lawyer. Okay,
being racist by itself is not a crime.
Okay,
but certain racial motivations.
Gotcha. Okay, so so the only thing that they can find out is that I attacked this first black person because he insulted me, right? Second time, I just go and attack a random black dude because I hate black people. That's definitely a hate crime. You would have to show that this Pakistani guy, I think, you would probably have to show, because our hate crime laws in the UK are very, very strict. It's very difficult to get convicted of a hate crime in the UK because we have a high threshold for it.
Yeah, I don't know about
for
that.
any. So if someone, I'm just saying that if this guy abused these girls because they were vulnerable, because he's attracted to young girls, whatever, then that's the crime. If he goes in court and says something about her race, I'm not surprised that if that's all they have, then they wouldn't go for a hate crime.
But here's the thing, Letterbox. If he's saying that stuff in court, if he feels such a sense of entitlement and impunity that he's actually literally right in front of the judge making racially aggravated incendiary comments, then we should investigate whether it's a racial hate crime. And maybe the threshold to charge someone
because
is
one
too high.
rapist, when he's in court, decides to comment on the victim's race.
He was literally the ringleader. Dude,
yeah, because one ringleader comments on the girl's race when he's in court. We have to assess whether or not that these that when Pakistanis do it, they're generally motivated by racial hate. Or
yes, we do, because if literally the ringleader in court says we are the superior race, then we should investigate whether racial attitudes are leading to these rapes.
Okay. Yeah. This, by the way, just completely. First of all, inquiries are very expensive. This basically vindicates what I thought. This new inquiry that people want is just to find things that are their maybe pet interests, or to maybe specifically focus on foreigners because of the hate crime incident. Yeah, it's just so people can scratch an itch that is just not going to help victims in the slightest. We're going to do an inquiry we're going to do an inquiry to find out, because of one ringleader made a comment in court about someone's race, that we're going to do a whole new inquiry on child abusers to find out if the Pakistani ones should be charged for hate crimes as well as sexual abuse.
It's not even just the ringleader as well, though. We literally had young Hamza Yusuf saying on British national television that it was a specifically cultural problem in the British Pakistani community to dehumanize women of other races and girls of other races. And we also
except when it's an Egyptian problem, and except when it's a fucking I mean, come on, it sounds like you're saying it's a Muslim problem. But
yeah, but we also know that
it's nothing. Okay. It's nothing specific to Islam. I'm not saying it's not Islam. It's not people's race. It's a specific cultural attitude, and you can change cultural attitudes. And to change cultural attitudes, we have to try and set cultural relativism to the side and say, listen, some of these attitudes that are leading to the dehumanization of girls and women in these communities, they're wrong. They shouldn't exist in Western countries. If you immigrate and you continue to have these views, you shouldn't be allowed to. You shouldn't be allowed to. People need to be sent home if they continue to harbor dehumanizing, horrible views about women and children.
Okay, sure. If that's your position, that it's being caused by all of these attitudes from Islamic societies, or cultural societies,
I think it's a major problem.
Then you're going to have to contend with.
It's not just Islamic as well, because, for example, Indonesia, as you made this good point earlier, Indonesia's the largest Muslim country on earth, and I don't believe that they currently have any problem with gang rapes, etc. like this. But for example, India, which is not an Islamic country,
do you know that? I mean, I don't know that if it's a fact. I don't know. Saying that.
I don't know, but
sounds like you're bullshitting. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not
sure. I mean, I'll look it up, but like.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You're kind of this is kind of the same shit where you're just making assumptions and you're going down tangents based on assumptions where you don't know if there's rape gangs in Indonesia. I don't know if there is. You don't know what Medhi Hasan said, and you.
There are rape gangs in Indonesia, in every country on earth, of course. But I'm saying here's a country, Indonesia, where it doesn't seem to have the same problems that we see in, for example, like India or Pakistan.
How the fuck do you know? I don't fucking know that. Have you done a fucking case study in Indonesia and compared it, the attitudes in one place versus the other? It sounds like you're just pulling shit out of your ass.
Well, there actually are statistics, for example, in India that have really that show there's really bad.
Now we're talking about India. We're talking about Indonesia.
No, I know, but I'm just giving you an example. Like that's a country that's not Islamic, but still has a big problem when it comes to treatment of women and abuse of women in that society. So I'm saying it's not particular to any one religion. It's not particular to any one race. These are cultural attitudes that need to be changed. Okay, and that's actually a point that you should be agreeing with me on, because I'm literally brought up.
Do you think I'm a fan of conservative religious, Islamic beliefs? I don't agree with them.
No, I mean,
whether they're culturally based. I actually do think there are such things as religious values and attitudes, and I think I'm not in favor. By the way, in this country, it's Christian evangelical beliefs. I think it's fucking toxic. I don't agree with a lot of the practices.
I don't like
which I do think are sexist in the ummah in the Muslim world. And by the way, the same thing of Jewish communities in this country as well. And I can point out and be honest that there are particular problems in certain doctrines and stuff like that. But here's the thing. When I say that, I'm not doing this big I just care about the childhood victim, this and that, and I'm not doing this from chauvinistic or xenophobic perspective, which I think is the goal of a lot of these bad faith actors. And also, I think I would want to be more backed by the data before I'm willing to say something like these are overrepresented, or I'm only going to focus on the subset of the subset in this place. And to me, it just smells of bad faith, not necessarily from you, although something, but certainly from Elon and some of the other movers and shakers here. But I have to bounce pretty soon. I'll give you the last word there, Drew.
Look, again, at the end of the day, all I'm saying is that cultural relativism is bad. We should address, bad cultural attitudes and values towards women wherever they occur. I'm a Greek Australian. I know there are a lot of Greek guys in Australia who have terrible attitudes towards women, and I've always hated that. Like, it's not specific to one race. It's not specific to one culture or religion. Unfortunately, there is a bad problem with Islamism in British Pakistani communities. There's a bad problem as well with lack of respect towards women and girls in British Pakistani communities. I'm not saying that makes all British Pakistani people evil. I'm not saying it's something innately wrong with them. I'm not saying it's racial. I'm not saying it's from Islam. I'm just saying it's a problem in this specific community. Let's be honest about that. Let's have a proper discussion about that. The worst ringleaders, these types of people need to be deported. People who are extremists, people who are preaching terrible attitudes, they need to be deported. We just need to have a better way to deal with people who are coming to we need a better system where we're dealing with migrants who continue to bring sectarian and terrible attitudes from their home countries. I can say that because my family, for example, are Greek migrants to Australia, and they're Greek Australians who are like. Here's a good example, right? I fought the leader of the Greek Golden Dawn neo-Nazis in Australia. I fought him in court. That's how hard I go against this stuff. And it's in my own community. This is a Greek neo-Nazi,
Islam?
the leader of the Golden Dawn. No, dude.
No, I literally didn't hear that word. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll
just quickly explain this to you, right? Like I'm a Greek Australian migrant. My family came to Australia from Greek Cyprus. I fought really hard against the Golden Dawn neo-Nazi leadership in Australia, which is the Greek neo-Nazi gang that was actually like designated a terror group in Greece. I fought him in court. So we need to be really, really hard. We need to be stronger when it comes to people who migrate to our countries, but they bring fascist attitudes or they bring like extremist, religious, sectarian attitudes, terrible attitudes towards women and girls. That's all I'm saying. And I think if liberals don't have a solution on this, then it's going to be terrible for the center left for the next couple of decades because this is a real problem. People don't like it. And when we're seen to be just only equivocating on this stuff, it's going to make it poison in the electoral.
I just want to be the last thing I'll say, and then I have to sign off. And thank you, Lonerbox, for participating and being so fair. By being fair, I mean only siding with me all the time, no matter what. I mean, you were pretty much, it was 2-on-1, and so good props to Drew for withstanding a very biased moderator. But
fair enough. No, it's fine.
I'll just say
he was an independent fact checker. What can I say?
Attacking Drew and making me look weaker because. Anyway,
I appreciate it. Look, you guys are fine. Look, we had a lot of disagreements. But I want to say I do think you guys are motivated by good faith, and I respect your opinions even if we disagree. Like, I know it got heated at times. I'm sorry. It's just me as a person, and I'm Greek Australian. I've got hot blood, Mediterranean. But look, like, I still respect you guys, even though we have disagreements. I don't think like Pisco is evil, even though we have strong disagreements on some issues. Yeah, I just want to say that.
All right. Much love, guys, and see you soon.
Take care. Peace.
See you guys.
Holy shit, man.